as I say that.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Climate and everything are the same word.
Phrasing.
Follow the restraint.
Science.
China. China. I have to have my China. Zuckerbucks. Illegal.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
Close it up, just like my wife's vagina.
I mean, this woman is dangerous, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, it's good to see you folks once again. All sorts of stuff for us here to look at today. Some of it is incredibly troubling. Well, better not tarry long. Just get straight to it. Well, it's Sunday FUNDAY and Cinco de Mayo at the same time. Really, might be difficult to live up to that today, but I'll try. First, though, let's talk about America. More particularly, let's start off America with the plight of the worker.
The factory workers at Nabisco are on strike right now for losing their overtime pay and having to work really long shifts. Their parent company is called Mondelez International. So I made a quote from the CEO of Mondelez International that says, "I don't care what it takes. I just want my goddamn cookies made." And I emailed it to Mondelez International. And I signed my name as Courtney Lee with the Coloradoan Times. And they emailed back and asked where I found that quote, and I said it was from a source close to Dirk. And then they said, just reiterating, this is fake and not on our website. If you don't mind, could we publish your email response as an official statement? This quote is fake and not on our website. We never said anything about the goddamn cookies. No, that quote is not something I said. You could quote, this is fake and has never been published on our website. Okay, thank you. For the record, goddamn cookies is not something I said. This is fake and has never been published on our website. This is still a misleading quote with things that were never said. You can quote, this is fake and has never been published on our website. Okay, thank you. Apologies for the goddamn cookies part. Then I emailed them a new quote from the CEO, Dirk, and signed my name as Jacob Jones, digital reporter for CBS Akron. So you want to make cookies for a living? Well, you better be prepared to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. No excuses. People want their fucking cookies. They emailed back and said they can confirm it's fake, and they asked for a link or a source where I found this. Thank you. We were sent this exclusive audio.
I don't care what it takes. I just want these goddamn cookies made.
Thanks for sharing, Jacob. I can confirm this is absolutely fake. Let me know if there's anything else you need. Thank you. I need some goddamn cookies. Creators on Twitch took a day off the platform because they're tired of all the hate.
Just figured we'd start with something silly. Honestly, somehow, even though it's satirical, like, it does seem like he's doing good work over there. I don't know what it is. Oh, God. Alright, what are we doing? You want your cookies too. Yeah, see? This is serious stuff. People want their fucking cookies. How dare these workers ask for pay that is reasonable? Living wage? Psh, cookie wage, you mean? Okay. When I first clicked this next story, I did not think that we were going to get what this is. This thing is very, very odd. It took like 3 turns during this story. I'm not gonna lie. Let's look at this. You used to eat cookies, but they're bad for you. Well, hopefully they weren't Nabisco cookies, because it sounds like the CEO of Mondelez is actually kind of a terrible guy. What did he say? He just said. He said the workers aren't, they're not there for anything. I lost it. I forgot what he said. I lost it. Let's look at this. This is, once again, I thought this was going to be a completely different sort of story. Takes about 3 turns during it. 10% of LA Metro drivers call out sick, delaying service. This is from 2 days ago. From NBC LA.
Darsha, thank you. If your bus was a little delayed today, it was by design. Metro bus drivers organized the stick out to shine a light on the violent attacks they and their passengers have endured. NBC4's Ted Chen live at Metro headquarters in downtown Los Angeles to tell us what bus drivers are saying.
So when I heard that, I was immediately like, wait, what? They're not protesting for better pay or anything like that. They're protesting over attacks? Okay, go on.
And how Metro is responding.
If I make it in July, it'll be 13 years.
Metro bus driver Juan Carlos Carballo says...
Okay, I just want to stop it right here and look at Juan. because you'll notice Juan is the only person standing here. And it's very odd.
He's worried enough about his safety and the safety of his passengers that he called out sick today and brought his message to Metro headquarters. Metro says about 360 drivers joined Carballo in the sick out to demand more action to protect people on its buses.
The attention from Metro, see what they're gonna do, because it's too much already. I feel it's too much. I took my own choice to call off and come out here. That's on my own personal choice.
The rash of attacks on Metro buses.
I'll be honest, the buses appear to be running fine behind him. It's a very odd shot right there. But I'm confused. They're saying that they're on strike for a day, but maybe they're not. It's not a real strike, a sick out. Maybe they're just taking the day and they're not, whatever, collectively voicing their opinions. But I just found it very odd that he was the only one there. I was like, what are there, 10 bus drivers in LA? What is happening?
And trains in the last month include the stabbing death of a 66-year-old grandmother and the stabbing of a bus driver. According to Metro, there were a dozen assaults against its drivers in February. Officials say they will be installing fully enclosed barriers to protect all its drivers on all of its buses.
We're planning to have all 2,115 buses done.
Yeah, that is a train / subway. I don't know why they showed that picture. It was odd. It was an odd choice.
By the end of the calendar year. So December 31st, 2024. At that point, it will be the first agency throughout the country with full enclosure barriers on the entire fleet.
It's definitely concerning to see that Metro bus drivers feel so helpless in a sense in their jobs, and that they have to walk out and advocate for themselves for more security.
Carballo says he's concerned his vision might...
Well, it's 10% of bus drivers, first off. But, here, listen to the solution that he wants. This is the solution he wants. The enclosements seem like a decent strategy. No, this is what he wants. He doesn't want the enclosement.
Restricted by the barriers, he says he's hoping Metro will take more steps, including letting drivers arm themselves.
We are not...
Yeah. So he wants bus drivers to all carry guns. It's a very odd strategy. I hate that plan.
Get rid of the Second Amendment.
So no solidarity with these dickheads and their plan. Do I think the bus drivers should be getting attacked? No. Do I think that the solution is to have them all armed with guns? Also no. Also definitely not. Yeah, don't attack bus drivers, obviously. Like, it's a given. That's a fucking given. Okay, let's look at this really quickly. Got a few political, American political things to look at. One of them's actually kind of funny and fun. Once again, it is Sunday Funday. I am going to try my damnedest to try and make this fun. Okay, but let's look at this first. This is from NBC News. Republican Veep stakes heat up as Trump remains mum on potential pick.
Tonight, former President Donald Trump appearing at the Formula One race in Miami. And with 6 months to go in the race for president, there's another race heating up to become his running mate. Possible Veep stakes contenders converging this weekend at a donors conference in Mar-a-Lago. At least 7 contenders on the shortlist, according to Trump World sources. Senator Marco Rubio and Governor Doug Burgum seeing their stock rising, Governor Kristi Noem seeing hers falling, and Trump praising them and the other prospects in his speech on Saturday.
Will you accept the election results of 2024?
I look forward to President Trump being the 47th president. A question you could ask him multiple times.
Senator, just a yes or no answer.
So the American people, the American...
Oh my God, Tim Scott really doesn't want to answer this question.
I don't want reality.
Jesus Christ, buddy. Will you accept the election results? Or are you going to act like a weirdo?
I look forward to President...
Nah.
Trump being the 47th president. Kristen, you could ask him multiple times.
Senator, just a yes or no answer.
So the American people will make the decision.
Newly installed Republican Party Chairman Michael Whatley addressing that issue and a so-called litmus test for RNC employees in his first network interview.
The RNC has been accused of creating a sort of litmus test for employees or potential hires around denying the results of the 2024 election. Is there any truth to that?
The only litmus test that I have is whether or not you support our Republican candidates.
The RNC says it's recruiting 100,000 lawyers and volunteers to monitor voting and has filed more than 80 lawsuits as part of what they call their election.
How much is that costing? 100,000 people? 100,000 lawyers and volunteers. You assume the lawyers are getting paid and they're not volunteering. I wonder what the breakdown is on that.
To monitor voting and has filed more than 80 lawsuits as part of what they call their election integrity program.
What do you say to critics who argue that these lawsuits are just sort of paving the way for former President Trump to claim the election was stolen in 2024 if President Biden wins?
They're absolutely not. Look, we're trying to do through these lawsuits is get states to implement common sense election integrity programs that has nothing to do with voter suppression.
Another priority for Whatley, uniting the party after a bitter primary and a push to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson.
We need to make sure that all of the Republicans understand the gravity of this election cycle, and they do, and we need to make sure that we are on the same page as we're moving forward.
Dasha joins us now. And Dasha, even against the backdrop of all this campaigning, we do expect the former president back in court tomorrow for his criminal trial.
Yeah, Hallie, that's right. And Chairman Whatley tells me that while it's been hard to have less...
Who do you figure that Trump is going to pick for VP, huh? Nikki Haley? Nah. Nah. Too easy of a choice. He's got to go for something crazy. Maybe Alex Jones. Maybe he'll pick Alex Jones for VP. That's my guess. He's famous for not paying lawyers. No, it's the RNC who's paying. I don't think it's Donald Trump specifically. I'm pretty sure it's the RNC. Okay. Alright, let's watch this. This came out 2 days ago. And it's just a fascinating little sort of exploratory research project, I guess you might call it, or like a observational science experiment. Good Liars went to a Trump rally in Schnecksville. And hold on, let me look this up again. I forgot where this is. Schnecksville is a place in Pennsylvania that has 4,000 people living in it. It looks like, the pictures look like hills have eyes sort of situation. Soul Life, why are you looking with your eyes?
What's the shirt say there? Kiss my ass. And if you give a message to Democrats, what would it be? You're gonna lose. Go Trump. I thought you were gonna say kiss my ass because of the shirt. Yeah, I could have went with that one as well. Let me try it again. Hey, how's it going? Good. If you could give a message to Democrats, what would it be? Kiss my ass. All right, that's great. That's so funny.
What do you think is going to happen in the 2024 election?
Oh, I think all hell's going to break loose, and it's going to be another summer of love because Trump's going to win, and the Democrats are going to lose their minds. And they're going to send everybody...
It's going to be a summer of love because...
They're going to hurt, and they're going to hurt as many people as possible. They're going to send their bad people out. Their Black Lives Matter, their Antifa. Oh, any foreigner that's here that doesn't belong here.
We need serious mental health access in this country. This video really makes that clear. You know, it lays it bare. The lack of access to mental health services is really affecting our country.
Is going to be sent to your front door.
Tell me about your hat.
Well, what would I like to say about my hat, sweetheart? You want to get in here? So I support Trump and.
Oh, we have to watch that again. Hey, honey, you want to come in here? No, she doesn't, as it turns out.
What would I like to say about my hat, sweetheart? You want to get in here? So I support Trump and. Let's go.
It looks like it's got hair coming out of it.
It's got hair coming out of it. Yeah, it keeps me warm too.
And why'd you get the hat?
I see one recently when I was up in New York, and I saw they were selling them here, and I decided to buy one 'cause I support Trump.
Would you wear that to like a grocery store or like out in public?
I think I would. Yeah, why not?
Because the hair, the way the hair looks.
I like the hair. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
But just to be clear, you'd wear it out in public?
Oh, I would. Yeah.
For the 2024 election, foreigners are going to be sent to your door?
The foreigners are already here, and they're already set up in the phone.
Oh.
And when somebody gives them the okay, they're going to...
They're in the phone. Wait, the foreigners are in the phone. What does that mean? They live inside the phone? And then when... What happens? Like someone presses a button, then they come out of the phone? What?
For us.
Where did you get this information?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Line cutter.
Oh, so what happened here?
We've been waiting for hours, and then in front of us.
So you guys are saying you guys have been here?
Oh no, they haven't been right here. They haven't been right here, these two.
So you feel that they jumped the line?
Yes, they did.
Why did you guys get in line here?
We didn't do that.
We didn't do that.
People right behind them.
Oh.
Did they jump in line here? They did? Okay.
So there you have it.
You guys are here for peace?
We're here for peace.
Well, you're not doing a very good job of it. You jumped in right back here.
People here saying they did not cut in line. Other people up here saying that they did cut in line.
We'll go get somebody that can get them. I was at
Go get somebody that can get him. What does that mean?
Got some food, yeah.
What does this rise to? Is that a crime? What's happened? What?
Some food came out there.
Yes, but no, I was at D.C. all Stop Steal rallies, and Pennsylvania.
This is why we need Trump, to get rid of the swamp, to get rid of the crooked line cutters. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, that's the kind of attitude I feel like this guy's got over here. Goddamn line cutters. Gotta stop that. Grimes is everywhere.
A little bit more came out there.
Yeah, you got me at the wrong time. He was feeding me. But, we knew what happened. I mean, Christ. 3 o'clock in the morning, we watched what happened. It all of a sudden it went boop, boop, bang.
We got a little bit more food that came out there. So let's let you swallow. You want to swallow?
Yeah.
Does a trans person existing affect you in any way?
When they're shoving it down our throats, yes, it does.
Oh, man. I feel bad for that microphone.
How are they shoving it down your throats?
Trans Day of Visibility, for example.
A single day. Oh, she's been oppressed. Good God.
Help! I'm being repressed!
On a high holy day.
That was just happened to be on March 30th. It's that day every single year.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't specifically because it was Easter. That's just the day it always is.
I stand by what I said.
And Donald Trump was saying a Christian. He wants to have a Christian Visibility Day. Would you like that?
Sure.
Christian Visibility Day. Do you think there should be like a national holiday just for Christians?
Why not?
You think that would be a welcome change for the country?
Absolutely.
What would be a good day for that?
Never really thought about that.
Maybe like December 25th.
We love our country. We want to make it right again. Make America great again.
You feel like Donald Trump?
But the Christians need to be more visible. They don't have enough holidays. Easter, Christmas. I mean, that's not enough. We need more.
Would be the guy to do that?
Yes.
And what needs to be changed?
Get your ass.
But that's not shoving it down people's throats, right? That's different. It's different. You gotta see that difference, okay? And I can't explain that difference to you if you don't see it, and your mind has already been taken over by the groupthink worms.
There, Joe and the Ho gotta go.
Joe and the
Ho gotta go.
And who is the?
Oh, Kamala Harris. She's gotta go.
Okay.
Kamala.
Do you feel that?
Why Kamala? What has she done that this man is so offended by? I would love to know. I really wish that he would get into this.
That's appropriate for kids to hear that kind of language?
No.
Okay.
No.
But you're saying it?
I said it today.
Yeah.
We have local politics have gone astray. We have, pretty much corruption on every level, even down to the family at this point, with some of the stuff that people are seeing.
What does that mean, corruption on every level down to the family?
Thing is, even families are corrupt. You have the kids. They're out there, they're taking bribes from Ukraine. God, what are we gonna do?
Look at the stuff that the families are subjected to, even on TV and the media.
You feel that kids are exposed to things they shouldn't be?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
At the beginning, you were saying what, though?
As far as
Joe and the...
Oh, Joe and the Ho gotta go? Yeah.
Does that feel totally appropriate?
Not necessarily, but she's earned a reputation.
Okay, so it's
she's under reputation. What does that mean? Sometimes when I hear Republicans such as this talk, I feel like we're speaking completely different languages. What does under reputation mean? Is reputation like a place or like a kind of is like an object, and you like Patrick, you can live under reputation?
It's different in that case.
Not necessarily, no. Yeah.
Did you feel that you shouldn't have said that, or?
As far as decency, now I mean, now you say it like that, I probably shouldn't say it's decency.
So why did you decide to come out here today?
To rock for Trump. And for freedom.
And for what?
And for freedom. For Call me Bluebeard.
Oh my
Okay,
god.
so you're a Bluebeard.
Did you just smash him? What was that? This dude is a little violent, huh? What was that shit?
Call me Bluebeard.
Okay, so you're a Bluebeard, and you're out here supporting Donald Trump, right?
I was supporting freedom.
Yeah.
If it helps me, I'm for it. If it hurts me, I'm against it.
This guy is a verified genius.
Everybody's on their own journey, you know.
I hear you, man. Are you on a journey? What journey are you on?
You're playing guitar.
Your journey is a journey of rock and roll.
Well, now, look at the Trump right there. Bomb him quick.
What the fuck is going on with this dude? Oh my god. Dude is very strange. And it's quite a life philosophy, by the way. If it's good for me, I'm for it. If it's bad for me, I'm against it. Which, for those of you that don't speak Pennsylvania hick, that's against. That means he's against it. Okay. These next two stories have so few views that it makes me... I am disgusted that nobody is paying attention to this. But this shit is hugely fucking problematic, which is why we're going to talk about it now. it affects a lot of people. It also may affect, you know, all sorts of, well, let's get into this first and then we'll talk further about it. But this shit is completely fucked. Okay, let's look at this from 3 days ago. U.S. House of Representatives passes anti-Semitism bill. This happened Wednesday.
The time right now is 5:07, and we continue our coverage on a federal bill that could change the definition of anti-Semitism.
Well, overnight, the U.S. House passed a bill 322-91, and a group of representatives say they want to protect their Jewish constituents. And the bill would essentially make it easier for the Department of Education to enforce anti-discrimination laws at public institutions.
So this bill would require the Department of Education to use the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism.
I love how this lady's just reading off the teleprompter and not considering what she's fucking saying right now at all.
Well, the Alliance has a short version of the definition, but also created a list of examples that's included in the new bill.
Part of the full expanded definition reads, denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination by claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor.
So, denying that Jewish people have the right to self-determination by claiming that the existence of the state of Israel is racist is now considered anti-Semitism. And that's not the only thing. I think there's some more to this.
Many of the Republicans and Democrats said adding this type of regulation infringes on free speech, including Republican Congressman from Austin, Chip Roy.
Criminal behavior is criminal behavior. Violating people's civil rights is violating people's civil rights. But when we want to insert the government into what you're thinking and what motivates you, you are empowering that which should never be empowered. The ability.
I love how they chose to listen to Chip Roy instead of any of the other people who spoke out against this. Is a interesting choice.
Government to police thought.
Austin area Democratic Congressman Lloyd Doggett and Greg Casar also voted against the bill. The bill now heads to the Senate, where its fate is uncertain.
Now, this
new legislation could change.
Now, this is not the only piece of legislation that's going around, and it's about to go to the United States Senate, where it may very well pass. And if it does, it will put a great number of people in jeopardy in one way or another who have been espousing the belief that the project of Israel, what they're doing, is racist and that it's apartheid, right? I think it makes a lot of people very vulnerable if they allow for this to happen. And I would point out that this is not being done in any other fashion. It's not being used in a homogeneous or systematic way, right? It's just in this one instance. You can still criticize China. You can still criticize Myanmar. You can still criticize Rwanda or the DRC. None of that's racist, right? You can criticize Panama or Brazil or Mexico. Not racist. But if you criticize Israel, you may very well be now essentially committing a crime, according to the the House, at least. I mean, the Senate has not approved this, but what does this mean for all of the people on YouTube right now who have been saying things like we've been saying here? I think it's I think it's a really bad move. And I'm trying to figure out how it's not, no, not the DRC. Yeah, okay. But there's more to this, right? And so let's look at this. This is in North Carolina, and see lawmakers considering bill targeting anti-Semitism. correct. Anti-Zionism may be illegal now, or may become illegal by, I don't know, next Senate session.
All this profit that I'm generating.
Hey, what just happened? Where? Oh, there it is. Okay.
New legislation could change the definition of hate speech against Jews in North Carolina. State House Speaker Tim Moore filed what he calls the Shalom Act. It creates a broad new definition of anti-Semitism. Our Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie joins us live from the legislative building. Laura, some Jewish people are even saying that this bill goes too far.
There are some, Gerald. You know, Moore's bill is very similar to a bill that passed the U.S.
Tell me if you think the same thing I'm thinking. I'm pretty sure this lady is super into this bill.
House this week with very strong bipartisan support. But critics of the bill here in North Carolina and at the federal level, including some in the Jewish community, say that it's overly broad and it's too political. House Speaker Tim Moore, who is running for Congress, filed the Shalom Act this week. It would write a broad new definition of anti-Semitism into state law. He said pro-Palestinian protests at UNC and around the country this week show the need for stronger protections.
What's happening is improper, and it's creating a hostile environment for Jewish students. It's creating just a hostile environment all the way around.
Wow.
The bill would adopt the working definition of anti-Semitism created by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance.
It's ridiculous to continue suggesting this, but the media is going to try to suggest that there are zero Jewish people on the side of the anti-war protest. But that couldn't be more like afactual.
According to that group's handbook, it is anti-Semitic to question the legitimacy of the country of Israel or to accuse Jewish people of mass atrocities or genocide. The legislation.
Let's listen to that one more time.
That group's handbook, it is anti-Semitic to question the legitimacy of the country of Israel or to accuse Jewish people of mass atrocities or genocide.
So, this law goes even further. Just to purely criticize Israel for any reason, right? Or to claim that somehow it doesn't have the right to commit mass atrocities and genocide is now anti-Semitic. And I know we've been watching a lot of fucking crazy shit happening, but this is more problematic than I think. The amount of attention that's being given to this right now is not relative, is not proportional to the amount of seriousness that this has right here. Because this will genuinely, this is codifying, shutting down of a specific kind of free speech.
The legislation has divided the Jewish community. Supporters say it's badly needed. They say current law lacks any clear definition of anti-Semitism. But critics on the left and the right say it goes too far in limiting political dissent.
It conflates anti-Semitism with criticism of Israel, and that's incredibly problematic.
Elizabeth Barber with the ACLU of North Carolina says the definition was not designed to be legally binding. She thinks the bill is calculated to silence critics of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Bill sponsors say it would not apply.
No shit, that's the only thing it's going to apply to. It's not as if, you know, real anti-Semites are out there making nuanced criticisms of the fucking state of Israel, right? The Charlottesville rally people were not out there making some sort of a, you know, like an apartheid argument against Israel, right? All right, let's look at this. As the situation is still ongoing and it's kind of fallen out of the media slightly, so I figured we'd just look at this in a little bit more detail. This is from More Perfect Union from a month ago, where pilot reveals shocking details about Boeing's safety issues.
The real benchmark will be, how high can Boeing profits go, given the decisions that they've made.
Indonesia passenger plane crashing into the sea minutes after takeoff.
The earnings of the Boeing company just about doubled.
Some employees who are calling the MAX a plane designed by clowns, supervised by monkeys.
Boeing showed you that its business is good, not with words, but with cold hard cash.
Inspectors have found loose bolts on more plane door plugs. Really sobering, right?
It really wasn't a surprise, sadly.
Deeply embarrassing, isn't it?
Boeing is putting profit over people.
If Boeing doesn't get its act together, you have to wonder if nationalization is a possibility.
The details of the Boeing 737 MAX saga are well known by now, so we're not going to rehash them here. Instead, we're going to talk about an idea that made it happen. An idea so powerful, so persuasive, it steered Boeing's elite down a road where they didn't just walk away with pieces of an American treasure, they ran. We're going to talk about how that idea destroyed a once great company and what the federal government can do about it, because Boeing is too connected and too important to America to fail. But first, we talked to a pilot about just how dire the situation is at Boeing.
I'm Captain Dennis Tager. I'm a 737 captain, and I am the spokesperson for the Allied Pilots Association, the union that represents the 16,000 pilots of American Airlines mainline operation. I flew Boeing aircraft in the United States Air Force. As a matter of fact, I depended on Boeing to save my life from an enemy outside of my airplane. Now the enemy is within. It appears that Boeing appoints CEOs that are more interested in share price and dividends than they are in flight safety and production quality.
It's been years since MAX crashes cost 346 lives. Since then, we've heard countless apologies and a stack of promises, but doors are falling off mid-flight, and it doesn't stop there.
One thing I did hear recently is that the families of the victims of the 737 MAX flight crash have been pressuring to have, I think, their government sue Boeing or something like that. I gotta look that up. Now I'm forgetting the exact details of it.
There's a lingering threat that more could go wrong.
We have an airworthiness directive from the FAA that tells us engine anti-ice, which is like a defogger, your window defogger on your car, except it goes to the engine. They're telling us on the MAX only, right now, hundreds of them flying, that if you leave that on for more than 5 minutes in clear air, the engine could come apart. That's like lighting a fuse.
That's fucking insane. Why would that even be a possibility? Did you hear that?
Hundreds of them flying. That if you leave that on for more than 5 minutes in clear air, the engine could come apart. That's like lighting a fuse. And the
5 minutes. Better hope you don't have an ADHD pilot.
Gunpowder is the engine. So I'm using Post-it notes from CVS and Walgreens. I even set up my iPhone for a 5-minute clock. I have it wired to my headset so that it goes off every 5 minutes should I have the engine anti-ice on.
It's fucking insane. I mean, fact is, you don't even have to be ADHD to forget something over 5 minutes. Just be tired or forgetful, or I don't know, distracted. 5 minutes. You can completely take apart the engine. That's just insane. That is fucking insane. Let's watch more of this. We're not gonna watch the whole thing though, so wait a second here. Yeah, right around here.
With a company like Boeing, you had a number of stakeholders. You had the public that used these airplanes. You had the national security community that relied on Boeing for weaponry and for aerospace technologies.
The workers, engineers, executives, shareholders, the communities that built the planes, all stakeholders with an interest in the company succeeding. They worked together and created airplanes that were profitable because they were useful to our society and to our world.
And then when you financialized it, what that meant.
Yeah, and that's when things get fucked. And this is sort of, honestly, an illustration of what's wrong with most companies, right? At one point, at whatever, I'm trying to think of exactly what point you would try to nail this down at, but there was some sort of idea that corporations had responsibility to the stakeholders, the public, the workers, everybody that their company, their product touched, they had some sort of responsibility to. But over time, that relationship has been completely just all but forgotten for shareholders.
Is that the shareholders became the most important stakeholders and everyone else were ancillary.
This playbook had a chief apostle, General Electric CEO Jack Welch.
Jack Welch trained a bunch of people who went into a lot of different parts of corporate America, including McDonnell Douglas. And a lot of the Boeing executives, even before they took over McDonnell Douglas, were kind of convinced that this Wall Street first mentality made sense.
Financialization was a new way to understand companies. Welch opened a door. Almost everyone followed into a new reality.
I think Welch is the best. He was tough and things got done.
This was a reality that society wasn't ready for. There was a hidden risk. Crafting airplanes.
What is their obsession with Jack Welch? It's fucked. Dude just sucked.
Doing a colossal jigsaw puzzle. But you have to design, manufacture, and assemble the pieces. Millions of them. It's hard. Slip-ups have serious consequences. Because Boeing spent a massive amount of money on productive assets like factories and engineering facilities to build airplanes, it didn't generate a lot of cash. And profits were slim, leading Wall Street to under...
Yeah, I feel like Jack Welch is like the hero to people who hate people, who like love money more than people. Okay.
McNerney was paid over $200 million for his tenure as CEO. Since 1996, Boeing CEOs were compensated almost $500 million. This doesn't include severance or pensions. Shareholders cheered when the company spent almost $64 billion on stock since the McDonnell-Douglas merger, helping raise the stock price to over $400.
The business models are seductive, okay?
But nearly everyone else lost. Boeing seemingly lost its ability to design and manufacture great airplanes. And it's not just the MAX.
When Boeing was building its 787 Dreamliner, they outsourced so much of it. It was kind of a disaster.
Financialization gutted the company, slicing off huge chunks and tossing them to suppliers.
As it turns out, when the suppliers build their different components and then it all comes together at a Boeing factory, it didn't all fit.
Boeing spent $32 billion fixing these issues, a potentially crippling amount for most. But not them. They controlled half the market. They used that same power to pressure suppliers and boost profit margins.
The product quality goes down when Walmart squeezes its suppliers.
Exactly.
The toilet paper's not quite as good, or you get a little bit less, or the jeans aren't as good, or whatever. That sucks when you're buying clothes or consumer goods. But it's actually dangerous when you're buying airplanes.
The door that detached...
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, the threat from jeans is much less than airplanes, technically. That isn't all too prominent trend, you know, that is happening right now, and we have to reverse all this garbage. For fuck's sake. Yeah, $32 billion. But once again, they own half the marketplace, right? They're able to wield this kind of power, right? And without antitrust cracking down on these companies, they're just free to do whatever the fuck they want. Who cares if they're shooting people into the sky at 300 miles an hour in potentially dangerous airplanes? As long as it makes money. More than the insurance policy. Okay, where are we at right now? Okay. Where's Beak at? I don't know. Alright, let's look at some environmental related news here. First, we're going to start off with the floods and storms that have been happening in southern Texas and the other nearby areas. First, let's look at this from ABC 13. From 2 days ago, which is a map of the San Jacinto River rising levels.
That's right. We know those rivers, those lakes really causing a lot of problems for people. And so we've been able to use this really neat tool called an inundation map to really help you visualize what's going on with those waterways. This is the inundation map for the West Fork of the San Jacinto River. We've heard that a lot, but this is really the visual that helps you see what it is supposed to look like, Rachel.
Yes, this is the normal size. What it looks at about 45 feet. Now, this is the current level coming in at 55 feet. So you can see it. Yeah, it's swelling. It is pushing right now, even in.
It's really swelled. I mean, it's taken over like 10 neighborhoods in this one map.
A few of those neighborhoods. Again, this is the West Fork, San Jacinto near Humble. And this is the, predicted level. It's still expected to rise, could get up to 61 feet, could be rolling into parts of North Shore as well as Riverside Crest, which are already seeing it rolling up into that area.
So the story really tells this thing is way out of its banks and it is not done rising just yet. You can really see why the threat persists with the West Fork of the San Jacinto River and the communities around it, Rachel.
You're exactly right. And, unfortunately, it's going to keep rising before it goes down.
That's not great. Okay. This is also from ABC Houston from 11 hours ago now, where floodwaters entered, and I can't talk. I'm trying to read. Come on, I can read. I know how to read. Floodwaters entered a Channel View. I don't know where Channel View is. I think that's what's throwing me off. I'm assuming it's near Houston.
Tonight, floodwaters are funneling into a small neighborhood near Channelview. Dozens of homes there now underwater, while rescue crews work to reach and save people. ABC 13's Giovanni Ligi joins us live tonight, where he was with crews out on the water. Giovanni.
Well, Tom, it is really just heartbreaking seeing home after home flooded here in this area. And while the San Jacinto River has crested here in this neighborhood, as you can see behind me, there is still a massive amount of water that is still yet to go down. Right now, the mouth of the San Jacinto River near Channelview spilling over into the small community, flooding dozens of homes.
We're near where the San Jacinto River meets the Houston Ship Channel.
Entire streets fully submerged underwater, stop signs sticking out. The eerie scene playing out as water rescue crews try to save people.
That is high.
As many people as we possibly can to get people out of here and get people home, to get people to safety.
Those strong river currents still ripping through the neighborhood as this woman calls out for help, trying to make it to her brother.
If I would have known that it could get this bad, I would never move down here.
Our Sky 13 capturing the flooding images from above, showing the estimated about 100 homes under.
I can't help myself from wondering when I watch all this stuff, like how many of these people in Texas believe in climate change.
Water. We joined rescue crews from the Harris County.
What do you think? What do you figure? 30, 40%? Do you think that level increases when you get hit by something like this?
Sheriff's Office. We checked on people who live in the area and Robinson's family.
Y'all okay?
I love you, Alva. I'll be back.
The Harris County Sheriff's Office telling us that they've rescued almost 24 people and roughly 20 animals from this area. Robinson saying she's thankful to have been saved, but shaken up.
I'm devastated. I just buried my mom Sunday, and it's just overwhelming. It's too much.
And while the river already cresting in this area, most of the damage has still yet to be seen. Reporting in Channel View.
That would really suck. Just, you have a funeral for a parent, and then the next day, blam, flood. Alright, this is from 13 hours ago. When I saw this number, I straight up was like, I didn't literally, but like I feel like my jaw dropped. Flood alerts in effect for over 21 million people in Texas and Oklahoma. This is from ABC News from 13 hours ago. That's 10%. That's like nearly 10% of the U.S. population.
The catastrophic weather situation in Texas and Oklahoma, where close to 2 feet of rain has fallen in some areas over the last 5 days. Still more torrential rain is due today. And Samara Theodore is in New Caney, Texas, with all the latest. Good morning to you, Samara.
Good morning, Will. That's right. Where I'm located right now is just along the San Jacinto River where it meets the border of Harris County. This is one of the counties that prompted evacuation for residents. And I spoke with a city worker earlier who talks about the water being well above that fence in the past few days. But we're starting to see things recede now. That's a little bit on the deceiving side because more rain is moving in as we speak, and that will exacerbate the situation on the ground here in Texas. This morning, weather warnings across Texas as the Lone Star State is poised for more severe storms after more than 6 inches of rain fell in parts of the state in the past 48 hours, leading to flash floods.
It's too late to evacuate without calling 911.
As many as 5 more inches of rain expected after days of heavy rainfall, leaving some neighborhoods underwater. Cars submerged, homes destroyed, families separated. This woman calling for help to find her brother.
If I would have known that it could get this bad, I would never move down here.
Nearly 200 rescues in Harris County alone by Saturday afternoon. No deaths or injuries reported so far. The heavy rain prompting water releases at area dams. The San Jacinto River rising 11 feet in 24 hours and expected to rise at least 3 more feet.
That's fucking insane. To have a river raise its level 11 feet in 24 fucking hours. Like, I don't know if anybody here lives near a body of water in any way, but if you can imagine that body of water suddenly raising by that much. Very suddenly. And when it comes to rivers, it's a bit different, right? Because the water goes downstream. Tries to find the easiest route to do so.
Until it crests today. In some areas, the destructive floodwaters beginning to recede.
You can see where the water was right here.
3 feet of water flooding this home. Damn. The homeowner returning to find nearly everything he owned destroyed.
It's a lot to take in. All we're doing right now is trying to see what we can salvage.
In other areas, water marks 6 feet high, showing how high the water rose before finally receding. While other parts of the state ready for even more flooding today.
We haven't been in a real negative mood about this. It's just something that's happening, and we're going to deal with it like anything else that you have to.
And just a few feet from where...
How is she dry in the middle of a river? Good question.
Standing, we have road closures in place, impeding access for residents to get to their homes. And unfortunately, more rain is moving in as we speak this morning to this area.
Witchcraft could be. Could be. All right, let's look at this. This is this is the most recent video I have of what is happening with the flooding in Southeast Texas. Let's look at this from NBC News.
Good evening. We are coming on the air with dramatic rescues in the state of Texas. Deadly flooding, submerging.
I'm sorry, but I have to do this.
Phrasing. Entire neighborhoods. More than 560 people had to be rescued or evacuated by first responders. And you can see what it looks like from above, from the air. All these houses underwater. You can see it here from the ground. Look at this. That is a street.
Those are some nice ass houses. You seeing these? Every single one of them's got a pool. Holy shit. Those are massive.
Air. All these houses underwater. You can see it here from the ground. Look at this. That is a street sign. The water is nearly to the top of it, just for some perspective. With some
totally normal.
15 million now bracing for more. From Dallas to South Dakota tomorrow. The risk? Another round of devastating tornadoes with another serious storm system moving in fast. We have team coverage tonight, starting with Priscilla Thompson in Houston.
Tonight, at least one person is dead as dangerous floodwaters rage across Texas. Body cam video shows Houston police rescuing this man and 3 dogs after being trapped in at least 8 feet of water in a flooded trailer park.
Oh, that was floating.
In Dallas, passengers struggling to escape rushing water on a roadway. And this empty horse trailer floating away in Hamilton, Texas. Since Friday, hundreds of people and pets have been rescued across the state amid a days-long deluge that has dumped more than 2 feet of water in some areas, including up to 2 inches today alone.
Jesus
This is the worst
Christ.
flooding that I've ever seen in my career.
Yeah, this is some insane shit right here. And honestly, we have been seeing flood after flood all over the goddamn world right now. It's been breathtaking in the worst way.
This river nearly swallowing an elevated roadway. Then, an explosion and electricity crackling along these power lines, likely caused by the wet weather.
That's crazy.
The view from above showing homes underwater, sinking cars, and submerged street signs as 8 million people remain under flood alerts from Texas to Oklahoma and Arkansas.
Very little.
So that number did come down by about 13,000. I'm sorry, 13 million, which is quite a drastic cut, but it still leaves 8 million people in flood warning. We're just at the beginning of everything, right? This is May, right? We're in the beginning of May. This is just when the rain starts, technically, right? And a hurricane season isn't for another, what, 4 months or something like that? Things could get fucked this year.
You're just worrying about the water going in the house. Hopefully it didn't go in.
This here was bad.
Oh my God. Some, like Erica Gines and Frank Courier, returning home to find almost everything destroyed.
But it's just wild to see like how much like damage it.
Oh shit, their entire floor just came flying up. Fuck.
That's overwhelming.
And to think about just moving all this stuff in 14 days ago.
Like stuff was from boxes. We had stuff over.
That sucks. They moved in 2 weeks ago. That happens.
And like the garage was full of stuff. Now it's all everywhere.
And for those in the flood zone, the threat isn't over yet, with major river flooding expected to last the next few days.
These
Priscilla is joining us now. So
insane.
Priscilla, have more folks had a
Good
chance to get
God.
back home yet? Get a look at the damage?
Not necessarily, Hallie. Take this neighborhood, for example. The houses back there look virtually untouched, but this is what the roadway leading into this neighborhood looks like. You can see how high the water is on that sign, and officials worry that people will try to drive through this water to get to their homes and that could lead to more rescues. Hallie?
Priscilla Thompson, thank you. For more, let's bring in NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns. And Bill, there are still major issues coming up for millions of people.
Hallie, we have a dangerous Monday afternoon and evening smack in the middle of the country. We're at a level 4 out of 5 risk. We call this a moderate, and this red bullseye is where we expect the best chance for not just tornadoes, but strong tornadoes that'll be on the ground for a long time.
Wait, they said 8 million, but this says 15 million. What's the difference? I'm very confused. What just happened? What did I just do? God damn it.
And the areas at risk are going to be from Oklahoma City to Wichita, heading up into northern Kansas, and evening hours heading towards Tulsa and eventually around Kansas City and Missouri. So the timing looks like late afternoon the storms form. They should be near Wichita, Oklahoma City here by about 7 p.m. And then they will try to travel towards Kansas City, hopefully weakening by that time by 11 p.m. in the evening. Wind damage, large hail, but it's the tornadoes that we're very concerned with. And this threat will continue into Tuesday. 24 million people at risk as we take this storm system into the Ohio Valley and areas from Nashville all the way down to Little Rock. Hallie, this week looks just as dangerous.
Wow. 24 million people at risk of being hit by tornadoes? That's a big-ass area. That goes from... Where's that go from? That goes from northeast Texas all the way up through... What is that, Pennsylvania? I can't see. It's kind of blocking it, but yeah. Holy cow. Nope. Hello, Gabby. Good to see you. The watermark is at least 4 feet high. Yeah, it did appear to be at least 4 feet high. In some places, it appeared to be much higher than that. I mean, it was all the way up to that street sign in that one place, which must be what, like 6.5 feet? Maybe a little bit lower, like 6'3", 4". Still, doesn't really matter once you're up to that. Most people are swimming at that depth. You think you can stop a tornado with TNT? Interesting. Is there any science to back that up, or just a hunch? You think a nuke? Wow, that's taking it from TNT to a nuke. That's really wow, really escalating things. Okay, let's look at these here. First, let's look at this one from 4 hours ago. ABC Philadelphia. Beached whale found on Delaware shore near Indian River Inlet Bridge. Now, this just happened and nobody knows the cause yet as to why this whale beached, but we can assume that perhaps our effect on the climate might have some link to it. You never know, though, till you know. Alright, let's look at this from an hour ago, where NBC Bay Area reported that kayaktivists take Chevron protest out onto the bay by Richmond.
No more pollution. That is a message from a unique protest in the Bay. Climate activists took over part of the East Bay, demanding changes at the Chevron refinery. NBC Bay Area's Christy Smith explains what demonstrators want from the global-based company in the East Bay.
After hours on the bay near the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, these so-called kayaktivists returned to the shore in Richmond this afternoon.
This was a peaceful protest out on the water.
The kayakers had signs that read, "Pollute no more, act now, clean air, water, and soil for all."
It's a global day of action to call out injustices perpetrated by the Chevron Corporation.
Alfredo Angulo is with the Rich City Rays.
And what we're saying is, hey, Chevron, the people of Richmond deserve a healthy, safe future, and so do the workers, and so we need to make sure that the refinery is transitioning to sustainable, renewable practices.
The group is dedicated to climate justice.
We had all of our folks go out to the wharf to temporarily block one of the ships.
Now, I'm not entirely sure how you make a refinery for gasoline sustainable or renewable, but perhaps I'm just not understanding what he means by that one.
To let them know that, we are the people of Richmond are tired and we are a force to be reckoned with.
The activists claim low-income communities of color are negatively impacted by Chevron and hope their signs and colorful kayaks will send a message.
What's unique about this protest is it's leading with joy and love. There's a lot of anger that can be felt towards Chevron and towards the fossil fuel industry, but Rich City Rays is very dedicated to making sure that the #1 mission is leading with joy.
We reached out to Chevron. In a statement, the company says it respects the rights of individuals to peacefully express their viewpoints. How
great and supportive of Chevron to totally cool with people expressing their views.
Chevron Richmond remains focused on safely and reliably providing essential energy that keeps the Bay Area.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah. Keeping the Bay Area moving, keeping pollution happening, and causing the globe to continue warming unnecessarily. Okay. Thanks, Chevron. You've been very helpful. Fuckers. No, I thought that was a great protest, though. Mostly because it was fun. However, I think we're going to have to increase our demands from making gasoline refineries sustainable. The only way to do that, I think, is to shut them down. Maybe I just don't know the science. Okay. Damn, we got a lot of environmental stuff to look at today. Alright, let's look at this. This is just a fun one. 3 days ago, very rare bird spotted in Oregon. First reported sighting in U.S. history. Well, I guess it could be a bad sign.
Finally tonight here, bird watchers and scientists are very excited about an image captured on a beach in Oregon. One beautiful bird. Tonight in Oregon at Hug Point State Park west of Portland, an incredible and perhaps first of its kind image here in the U.S. You're looking at what bird watchers believe is a blue rock thrush, a species never before documented here in the United States, native to Europe and Asia, known for its unique colored blue back and chestnut front. The image captured by amateur photographer and middle school teacher Michael Sanchez. He was there at sunrise taking photos of the beach when all of a sudden he spots the beautiful bird. And right here tonight. Hello, David. That teacher telling us he shared the images hoping to officially.
That poor guy. That was his moment to shine. All he got was
night. Hello, David.
God damn.
Teacher telling us he shared the images hoping to officially identify the bird.
Before I knew it, I had folks from birding associations getting in touch with me, asking me about this bird. It has been a wild ride.
The discovery sending bird watchers flocking to that state park. The photo now being studied by scientists. And joining us tonight.
Hi, David.
Brody Cass-Talbot from the Bird Alliance of Oregon.
It's probably the rarest bird that's ever been recorded in Oregon. It's also first for the United States.
Tonight, bird watchers everywhere excited.
The leading theory is that this bird was migrating, encountered a storm, got blown out to sea, and potentially found a passing ship headed to the United States.
And this evening, that middle school teacher and amateur photographer proud of his find.
What I'm mostly happy about is this brings a little bit of joy and a little.
Honestly, I just love birds. I love anything that can fly. What can I say? But it's weird, right? That a bird that's from Asia, Europe exclusively, that's never been seen in the United States, suddenly shows up. Oh, God. Alright, let's look at this one. This. Birds aren't real? I hear you. This is from 3 days ago. I found this report to be incredibly disturbing, but the fact is, this is probably very close to reality. I don't want reality. This is from 3 days ago. Climate reporter on possible forced migration for millions due to climate change. That should be changed. That title should be like tens of millions, not just millions. This data is insane. You just stepped in cat puke. That's not good.
As temperatures continue to rise and natural disasters grow in frequency and magnitude,
tens of millions across the country are forced to grapple with what's becoming the new normal. But as our next guest argues in his new book, On the Move, The Overheating Earth and the Uprooting of America, this may just be the beginning. And joining us now is investigative reporter Abram Lustgarten. Abram, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You write that over the next 30 years, the U.S. will face a climate reckoning that could mark the largest migration in American history, twice the size of previous migrations. What's led you to that conclusion?
Well, if you just look at where climate perils are expected to hit the United States, about 13 million people are expected to be displaced from coastal flooding and sea level rise alone. There's a body of research that looks at the shifting climate niche, the changing habitat for humans, and it's moving northward across.
Let's just listen to that again. I want to hear that figure he said.
Climate perils are expected to hit the United States. About 13 million people are expected to be displaced from coastal flooding and sea level rise alone.
13 million people to be displaced by flooding and coastal sea rise alone. And by the way, that's not the only issue with climate change. If you're wondering to yourself if that's the only thing to worry about. No.
There's a body of research that looks at the shifting climate niche, the changing habitat for humans, and it's moving northward across North America. And that modeling suggests that upwards of 160 million Americans will face a decline in their environment, the kind of things that would force them to have migrated in the past: wildfires, extreme heat, extreme humidity, declining crop yields, things like that. So we don't.
160 million. That is half of the United States population. I gotta hear that again too. It's just insane. It's an insane number.
The changing habitat for humans. There's a body of research that looks at the shifting climate niche, the changing habitat for humans, and it's moving northward across North America. And that modeling suggests that upwards of 160 million Americans will face a decline in their environment, the kind of things that would force them to have migrated in the past: wildfires, extreme heat, extreme humidity, declining crop yields, things like that. So we don't know how many people will move, but it's almost certain that somewhere in the order of tens of millions of people will be shifting where they live. And my book projects that.
So his conservative estimate in terms of people that may be forced to migrate is tens of millions of people. Jesus Christ. We are in a very dire situation, people, and we need to wake up with the climate situation. I know there's a fuck ton going on right now, but if we don't deal with this, well, we won't have the wherewithal to deal with any of the rest.
You know, it'll really demographically change the shape and location of populations across America.
And where do you surmise that all these people are going to go?
Well, if you look at a map of those risks that I just described, they kind of squeeze the country from the west, wildfires also in the southeast, and extraordinary flooding and heat in the south. And so that suggests.
What's interesting is the dichotomy here between the reality of the facts and the people who it's going to affect, who A, tend to deny climate change, just going by the facts. If you're in the South, it's more likely that you don't believe climate change is real. And you also don't like immigrants. So I just find it to be fascinating that this is genuinely a strong possibility of what will happen.
That there's going to be an arrow pointing northward, that the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region with plentiful water, the Northeast might be destinations for large populations, but also cities in the South. Atlanta comes up a lot in my models as a destination place where climate migrants from the surrounding states and rural areas might wind up. So I think we'll see a rapid urbanization and a general shift of that population northward, where conditions will improve, where crop yields might improve. And some of those most dramatic impacts and dangers don't quite exist.
You write that these migrations will impact populations disproportionately, specifically in poorer communities. Tell us about what you've learned.
No kidding.
Well, the impacts of climate change, will fall disproportionately, and they'll exacerbate weaknesses that we already see. So weaknesses, divisions between rich and poor, between communities of color and white, that are already, experiencing the legacy of decades of unequal policies like redlining that has, left communities in Los Angeles, for example, with less tree cover, higher temperatures, and by association, greater instances of heart disease, cardiac arrest, and things like that. So the hotter the climate gets, the worse those kinds of impacts will be. And in the same, by the same token, communities with less financial resources are going to have less ability to protect themselves, less funds to build seawalls or tax bases to.
Exactly, or simply just to move. I mean, moving is an expense. For fuck's sake. Yeah. My God. We have a lot of work to do, chat. Oh, God. Okay, let's look at climate change outside of the United States. Or at least environmentally related disasters, I guess you might say. Actually, just got one to look at. This has been going on now for, I think, a few days at least. Maybe longer. I think it may have started, stopped, and started again. But let's look at this flood that's happening in Brazil due to the torrential rains that have been happening there. This is BBC from 14 hours ago. Brazilian landslides and massive flooding kills dozens.
We start with the devastating floods in Brazil. More than 10,000 people have been rescued from floods in the southern state of Rio Grande do Sul, but conditions are deteriorating. Close to 60 people have died, with 70 others missing. Entire communities have been ordered to evacuate after the river flowing through the state capital Porto Alegre burst its banks. 2 people were killed in an explosion at a petrol station where emergency vehicles were being refueled. One dam has collapsed and others are at risk of failing, with more rain forecast. Rescuers broke through the roof of a house to rescue a mother and her baby who were stranded in the floodwaters. The extreme weather has been caused by a rare combination of hotter than average temperatures, high humidity and strong winds. Professor Chris Turney is an earth scientist and Pro-Vice Chancellor of Research at the University of Technology in Sydney. I've been talking to him about the impact of the flooding.
It's a tragic situation. This is actually the 4th major flooding these poor people in southern Brazil have suffered from over last year, and this one's the worst for 80 years. But it's very much falling into a pattern now, as you say, a combination of absolutely horrific conditions combining to create this extreme event.
And what about, people always talk about the El Nino, don't they? And how much is it down to that, and how much of it is down to global warming?
Why are these people so obsessed with the goddamn El Nino instead of just accepting the fact that the planet is in fact getting warmer and is definitely us?
What's your assessment?
Well, it's those 2 reasons, to be honest, Lucy. I mean, the first one is the El Nino. People might be familiar with that. It's a warmer tropical Pacific Ocean. It's one of the biggest causes of climate variability in the planet. And it's basically shifting the wind belts at the moment. It's something that's just started to ease off, but this is the last hurrah by the looks of it. And it's basically shifting the rains to the south. People might have remembered the awful drought the Amazon suffered from. But in the south, it causes flooding. But on top of this, you're absolutely right. It's global heating. It's basic physics. We're putting so much carbon pollution into the air. It's adding around 4 Hiroshima bombs of energy to the atmosphere every second. And that's every second. And because hotter air is first-year air, it can hold more water.
The fact is that the El Nino is only affecting things slightly, right? There's a great deal of warming that is right now unexplicable, at least in terms of like seasonal and other things like that, right? Like with El Nino type of weather patterns.
So that's got to go somewhere. And unfortunately, we're going to get more of these extreme events, and they're going to be dropped on people around the world, causing these devastating impacts.
I mean, this does seem particularly bad in terms of the dams that are breaking. I mean, that just shows the force of the floodwaters, doesn't it? I mean, in terms of the region's readiness for these extreme weather events, what do you think? I mean, are they going to need sort of a radical overhaul of the whole infrastructure?
Oh, very much so, Lucy. I think this is something we're seeing around the world now. We're having to build more resilience into our communities, into the way we live. We can't keep concreting over everything. You'll hear a lot of people talking about sponginess of cities and landscapes, where we can absorb that moisture when it's wet and then give it out and release it when it's dry. But it's something we're going to see a lot more of. I mean, people might be aware of the tropical.
Okay. Let's move on. There's just some freaking insane footage from this that has come out since then. This is from 12 hours ago, where a boat is seen slamming into a bridge.
Aguenta. Pior que a dela já levantou já uma parte.
So you can see the boat. It's like right here. And then as they turn the camera, you can see that this bridge is completely inundated with water, right? Like, this is all flood water that's getting trapped under the bridge, and then blam.
Olha lá.
And then it gets sucked back by the turbulent water.
Quebrou. Meu Deus.
Meu Deus, indeed.
Agora ela vai fazer pressão na ponte. Bem no meio. Levantou, quebrou no meio. Olha a força da água. Deus do céu.
Now, it is unknown at this time as to whether or not there were people on that boat. It was, as it turns out, a ferry of some kind. It was meant to ferry people back and forth. And, really, it's unknown. So, just hope that nobody was hurt in that. Ah, God. Okay, let's move on. Just look at, this. From AP from 5 hours ago. This is the most recent footage I could find of the Brazil situation happening. According to the AP, floods in southern Brazil have killed at least 75 people now over the last 7 days, with 103 missing. You didn't see the boat? You didn't see the boat? Hold on. How'd you miss this boat? I'm gonna go back. You see it right here? It's like this. It's this sort of. I guess I can see why it might be hard to see. You see it move in there? It's not a big boat. It's a ferry. It's like a. What do you call it? It's like almost like a raft, but it's a little bit more bigger. It's bigger and more built than that, but oh, bad eyes.
Olha o barulho. A balsa quebrou. Quebrou. Meu Deus. Acertou a ponta.
Did any of you ever watch 3%? That Brazilian like dystopian drama series. It's on Netflix. I think it was made by Netflix, so I assume it's still on there. Just the way that woman spoke in Portuguese reminded me of that show. I don't know why. Hopefully people got off of that thing before anything happened. Okay. You didn't see 3%? Oh, you gotta see that. At least that's my recommendation of the day. The second season kind of lost it for me, but I feel like I think the first season stands alone as a good watch. Okay, let's look at this next. AP 5 hours ago. You're upset that I'm recommending 3%? Okay. I'm not sure why you're upset by that. What is your objection to that show? Seems like you have a lot of objections all the time. You don't have to like the show. It's totally fine. I just happened to mention it because she reminded me of it. And it's totally a choice that everybody here can make. Lula's face said it all? Yeah. No, he seemed pretty fucking concerned. It looks concerning. Is this Brazil? Yeah. What? How did you not know this was Brazil? I feel like I said Brazil about 7 times. Okay, let's look at this. I had a story come across my desk, but it was not in video format, and so I didn't want to just sit here reading to you about it. So, let's watch this from Our Changing Climate from a year ago. Now, some science has come out that is somewhat promising, I believe, what I read about this, but this is from a year ago. Can seaweed save the planet?
Underneath the rocking blues of the ocean's surface lie forests of green. Gently flowing in the currents, these organisms are the trees of the ocean. Stunning groves that rise up from the depths and shelter thousands of species from the vast void of the sea. But for us humans, these organisms are so much more. They're food, animal feed, protection from storms, a livelihood, and a possible solution to pulling years of fossil fuel emissions out of the atmosphere. These wonders are none other than seaweed. And today we'll discover why these plants, that are not actually plants, may be the key to unlocking a new way of farming that could be an essential tool to building a zero-carbon world. This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream, which now comes with Nebula for free when you sign up using the link in the description. Over the last decade, entrepreneurs, fisherfolk, and thought leaders have latched onto the promise of seaweed farming with exuberance. Nonprofits like Greenwave and for-profit entities like C6 Energy have emerged to encourage and fuel a seaweed farming boom in the United States and, more broadly, the Americas and Europe. What they claim is, on the surface, extremely promising. A thriving seaweed farming system that supports the livelihoods of thousands of coastal communities, restores ocean habitats, and, for many, the most important bit, sequesters millions of tons of carbon out of the atmosphere. This is the promise of the nascent blue carbon industry. We'll get into whether seaweed farming lives up to this hype in a little bit, but before we do that, what do seaweed farms actually look like on the ground? Luckily, countries like China and Indonesia have been farming seaweed for almost 1,000.
Short answer, seaweed saves us. What's the long answer? Well, this.
700 years. So we can already see what this blue carbon aquaculture looks like at scale. Most seaweed farming looks like plots of coastal waters with lines of kelp or suitable seaweed species growing vertically down from lines strung across the surface of the water. Some seaweed varieties can grow as fast as 2 feet per day, and when fully grown are then harvested by boat, processed on land, and broken down in numerous materials that run the gamut from dried seaweed flakes to animal feed to agar for thickening, and even biofuels and bioplastics. In 2019, the world produced 35.7 million metric tons of seaweed, with China and Indonesia responsible for 84.6% of that production. Needless to say, imperial core countries like the United States are chomping at the bit to fill their coastal waters with seaweed farms, especially considering...
Can it get us high? Not that I'm aware of.
the benefits of seaweed groves. Looking at wild seaweed, which is an umbrella term for thousands of species of large algae, scientists have discovered their immense capacity to draw carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and lock it back into the earth or the deep ocean. One research paper estimates that macroalgae sequester roughly 173 teragrams of carbon per year globally. To put that in perspective, that's the equivalent of sequestering the emissions of 8.65 million people living in the United States each year. And looking towards seaweed aquaculture, this paper claims that a square kilometer of seaweed farm could sequester 1,500 tons of CO2 every year, which would be like reversing the footprint of 300 people living in China or 75 people living in the US every single year. To be clear, this is a rough estimate of carbon removal. The body of research and recording mechanisms are still in their infancy, so it's hard to get exact numbers on how much carbon wild and domesticated seaweed is actually capturing. That being said, there are a host of other benefits that seaweed provides to coastal ecosystems. Seaweed farms, when introduced, have provided rich habitats for sea life, deacidified their surrounding waters, created storm and flood resilient coastlines by buffering wave energy, as well as provided oxygen-rich oases in oxygen-deprived zones. These are all exciting prospects. Along the Chinese coast, for example,
okay, gonna move us forward a little bit.
Still growing. A quick Google search of seaweed farming reveals a lot about the excitement over the potential of this carbon sequestration powerhouse. Articles like this or this feel like 19th century gold rush promoters of the American West. That much hype raises alarm bells for me, especially considering this recent scientific paper that has called into question seaweed's potential for carbon sequestration. It points out that previous studies have failed to account for the contribution of the influx of organic material and plankton that wash into wild seaweed groves, providing extra food for sea life and ultimately leading to significantly more carbon dioxide emissions. The paper claims that as a result, wild seaweed forests might actually be a net source of carbon. I use this paper not to discount seaweed sequestration wholesale, but merely to demonstrate that research on these practices are extremely new and evolving. We are still in the midst of parsing out exactly how wild seaweed and seaweed farming contributes to our ecosystems. To be clear, many scientists...
Okay. And the fact is that there has been more studies coming out that are promising about the use of it as carbon sequestration. However, we cannot allow for companies to use it as, like, what do you call it? Like carbon credit bullshit and trying to hide their own carbon footprints by doing this. And it just needs to be a, you know, an added thing in our tool belt, if you will.
Fraction. seaweed represents a mode of agriculture that would tie humans back to the earth and the sea. But to do so, seaweed farming must not just be seen as another novelty for a startup to automate. Seaweed farming is a piece of an amazingly complex web of low carbon, carbon negative, and justice-oriented actions and ideas that we must integrate to build a better world. Because at the end of the day, even if seaweed farms expand to pepper the world's coastline and draw down millions of tons of carbon from the atmosphere, it will not be enough. Yes, it will certainly help, but if we continue to grow our emissions footprint as our capitalist system is currently doing right now, using seaweed farming to sequester carbon from the atmosphere will be like trying to fill an ever-expanding hole. So the natural carbon capture mechanisms of seaweed farming have to be combined with political tendencies like eco-socialist degrowth that seek a contraction of production in the imperial core and an expansion of well-being for the periphery. At the end of the day, seaweed...
Exactly. And one of the more interesting things I heard in that, honestly, aside from the fact that it is beneficial to coastlines and ecosystems, the fact that you can use it as ways to cut down the methane emissions or farts of cows is incredible. It is a really awesome thing to hear. I don't know exactly how effective that is, but it's truly amazing. You have good news. Most everyone here knows already, but you didn't get a chance to tell me. What is the news? Tell me the good news. Have we solved the crisis? Have we done it? Can I just you know, end it now? Oh, okay. Nice. Well, congratulations on your success. It's very exciting. Scroll down? Scroll down what? Huh? What am I scrolling? I scrolled all the way down. Can't scroll any more down. Oh. Okay. It is that time of the stream. Well, I hope everybody has been enjoying themselves and the stream so far. If you haven't already, hit that like button and do consider subscribing. If you're looking for other ways to help support GNN, well, check out my Patreon, where you can get access to space benefits only seen to Galactic producers. Anyway, feel free to take this intermission as an opportunity to take a little dip in the space pool here. Grab yourself a drink, a snack, or just shake off those blues with a little dance. All right, chat. Be right back. Alright, well, I'm back. Hope everybody enjoyed that short intermission. Now, gotta get onto the rest of the stream, which mostly includes global politics, but also a sort of deep dive into... Well, we'll get to it later. You'll see. You'll see. Let's start here, though, as it is Cinco de Mayo, with a little bit of Cinco de Mayo news. This is from 3 hours ago at the AP, where an annual recreation of Cinco de Mayo victory by Mexican troops over invading French forces is done in the streets of... Where is it? Not, Mexico City? The happiness that one feels as a peñonero is great. These traditions were left to us by our grandparents. This makes me kind of want to dance. Look, Cinco is not over. Not for the entire world. Okay? So I will not have this Cinco is over talk. Total normal party. Totally normal. Absolutely. Totally normal. But it actually is a celebration of something. Some of us may not know about the history of Cinco de Mayo, so I thought, let's look into it a little bit, huh? This is, there's a little discussion of that. Exactly, it's still the 5th where my dogs is, and plenty of other people. You know? West Coast, it's definitely still Cinco de Mayo. In Hawaii, it's gonna be Cinco de Mayo for a minute.
Hi, I'm Griffin Johnson, the Armchair Historian. Today's video, how France fought Mexico to put an Austrian into power only to be stopped by the United States. I promise it'll all make sense soon. I'm very pleased to announce that today's video is sponsored by the Great Courses.
Oh, right, I forgot he does this whole thing. Alright, here, let's go.
Between 1857 and 1861, Mexico was embroiled in a civil war, fought between the conservatives, who espoused the Catholic Church and the central government, and the liberals, who espoused democracy and equality. The conflict began after the conservatives, who were unhappy with the results of the election and the reforms being instituted, rose up in revolt against the liberals. In 1861, the liberals won the war, with Benito Juarez being recognized as president and bringing an end to the bloodshed in Mexico forever. Except that wasn't the end of it. See, during the Civil War, both sides borrowed a lot of money from Spain, France, and Great Britain. When the liberals won, these powers expected them to pay compensation, not only for the money that they borrowed, but for the money the conservatives also borrowed. The liberals weren't enthusiastic about the idea, to say the least.
Yeah, no
so
kidding.
The European powers decided that they would seize their recompense instead. The plan was...
It's nuts. It's like saying that... I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example here. No, that's a bad one. But it's just like, you know... it's like, it's just like saying, hey, pay for the other side of the war's expenses. Like, what? Who Who's gonna say yes to that? That's insane.
Strong-arm Mexico into paying for the wall. Wait, that's not right. Strong-arm Mexico into paying for the war. But Napoleon III had other plans. After all, he had a lot to live up to. His intention was not to simply collect debts, but to take over all of Mexico. And to do that, he would need a monarch who would serve as his puppet. That's precisely where Archduke Maximilian comes in, a Habsburg who had been approached by Mexican monarchists before and could claim to be the rightful ruler of the now defunct territory in New Spain. In December 1861, the European coalition comprising France, Great Britain, and Spain captured Veracruz with little to no resistance. Exact numbers are hard to come by, but we believe that the invading force numbered some 6,000 men, whereas the Mexican army could only field some 3,000 men at the time. With such a hefty numerical advantage, the Europeans crept ever closer to Mexico City, capturing 3 cities along the way. Then
Hola, Brandy. Good to see you. Happy Cinqo. We are actually in the middle of discussing what it is that people are celebrating when Cinqo is, is being celebrated. That's definitely the best way to put that. Don't question it. I'm just going to move forward a little bit.
On the eastern coast of Mexico, the French expanded their foothold until the end of 1862. When Zaragoza died, the French returned to Puebla under a different general, Élie Frédéric Faure. He was in less of a hurry to take it, and in March 1863 he besieged the city with 26,000 men. After a grueling 2-month siege, the defenders, despite several relief efforts and sortie attempts, were forced to surrender in May 1863. The road to Mexico City now lay open to the French. In May, Juarez and the Mexican government took flight from the capital and made for Chihuahua. 1 week later, on June 7, 1863, French troops stormed Mexico City. The second phase of the French conquest of Mexico had now begun, installing Maximilian and keeping him in power. To convince him to take the crown, Napoleon provided him with results from a rigged election. He accepted the crown in October of that same year and began working on a series of progressive reforms, making the country more open to democracy, abolishing a Mexican form of serfdom, ending child labor, and even limiting work hours. Mexican conservatives lent him tepid support. French and Imperial Mexican forces remained victorious on the battlefield until the end of 1865, taking a number of cities and asserting control over Sinaloa and Jalisco. Their advance stalled thereafter, and in 1866, Juarez's Republican forces made a startlingly fast comeback armed with American dollars and weapons. Up to that point, Americans had been busy fighting the bloodiest war in their history, but now that the United States were united once more, they were more than willing to enforce the Monroe Doctrine and thereby defend their southern border from European imperialists. Napoleon III was prudent enough to begin withdrawing troops, deciding that Mexico was not worth the damage to Franco-American relations. By the end of 1866,
so eventually, the Mexicans push out the French, and it happened on May 5th. Hence the celebration. Okay, moving along. We have other things to do. Can't just talk about Cinco de Mayo all day. Alright, we're going to move on to Europe, where President Xi Jinping has come from China to meet with EU leaders, first starting in Paris. Let's look at this from France 24 English.
Well, Xi Jinping's travelling to Europe with 3 main goals. Firstly, defend his economic policy and push back against accusations of overcapacity. Secondly, defend Beijing's business with Moscow and see how far he can go. And finally, trying to create a little bit of tension or friction within Europe. Now, first, for Beijing, some of its overcapacity is a necessary side effect of growth. And for them, it's really hypocritical for countries who developed a long time ago to try and point their finger at China's attempts at modernization. For the EU, though, massive industrial subsidies amount to unfair competition and dumping. They've already started probes into Chinese electric vehicles, solar panels, medical devices, and more. And this really is a huge issue between Europe and China right now, and it's unlikely to be resolved anytime soon. Another major sticking point is the war in Ukraine, a war on European soil. Emmanuel Macron is set to once again warn President Xi against propping up Russia's war machine. Beijing has so far insisted on its right to do business with whomever it wants to, and has not crossed that red line of directly selling lethal weapons to Moscow. Finally, Xi Jinping's choice of destinations is very telling as well. After Paris, he's headed to Belgrade. That visit will be seen as an anti-NATO lap. The visit to Budapest, meanwhile, support for an outlier leader within the EU.
And you know, what are Chinese media saying about Xi's
those are some very specific countries to visit.
visit to France?
Well, the French-Chinese relationship is really being portrayed in a very positive light by state media and state-controlled media here in China. The emphasis really is on multilateralism. It's a word in almost all the headlines here, with frequent mention of President Emmanuel Macron's support for strategic autonomy. That's his insistence that Europe needs to define its own foreign policy according to its own interests and not blindly follow that of the United States. No surprises there then that Beijing really appreciates this messaging. Aside from hard politics, though, there's a lot of talk here about...
In my opinion, I think there's probably some good points being made on both sides here. You know, China's definitely right about the hypocrisy. You know, the EU is, you know, probably right about propping up Russia during this fucking war that they're waging. But, you know, hopefully there's some sort of middle ground where everybody can meet and stop neglecting the important shit, like, I don't know, stopping climate change. If we keep blasting missiles off at each other, I don't think it's gonna help. Alright, let's look at this. Just really quickly talking a little bit more about this meeting that's happening between Emmanuel Macron and Xi Jinping.
Beijing is likely to defend its view on overcapacity. For the Chinese leadership, industrial overproduction isn't unfair. It's just side effects of a growing economy. But this is likely to fall on deaf ears, as Emmanuel Macron has been a staunch supporter of Brussels' anti-subsidy probes and has been eager to correct the trade imbalance between France and China. Chinese state media, meanwhile, have also been very quick to applaud Macron's vision for strategic...
I'd also point out that I don't think France is complaining about America subsidizing different aspects of its industrial capacity. Happens all the time.
If Paris sees it as a way to defend Europe's interests first, Beijing sees it as a way to drive a wedge between Brussels and Washington. But if Xi Jinping fails to understand just how important Ukraine is to French and to European interests, well, that conversation will also remain very difficult. So you can expect a lot of...
Okay. Let's move along to this, where... Sweden's Eurovision contest is to start very, very soon. However, they have decided to allow Israel to compete in it, resulting in quite a lot of pushback among people in Europe. Let's look at this. From, what is this, 12 hours ago?
On Chinese United by music. This year's Eurovision slogan couldn't be further from the truth. The annual feel-good celebration is shrouded by controversy over Israel's participation amid the war in Gaza. Direct threats have been made against the singer representing Israel, and thousands are expected to gather in protest when the event starts.
We count on 20 to 40,000 demonstrators coming to Malmö, coming from all over Europe. It will be a very big protest.
100,000 visitors are expected in Sweden's southwest coast city of Malmo for the event, where the police authorized a Quran-burning demonstration on Friday.
Wow.
In this tense context, security is a top priority.
There are a lot of police on the ground throughout Malmö. We receive reinforcements from all over Sweden, but also from Denmark and Norway. We also use drones so that we have a good overview of the event.
Another major world conflict is expected to be at the heart of the event. Ukrainian group Aliona and Jerry Hale will be defending the blue and yellow flag.
If you talk a lot about your situation, people hear you. So now I feel that people heard us still now. And
we are here to talk.
Yeah.
If they win, the duo say they plan to sell their trophy and donate the proceeds to the war effort.
They did not talk very much about the protests that are happening, but there are in fact protests planned for that event and have been actually ongoing in different areas. A bunch of people are not super thrilled about their decision. Okay, what's next? Alright, let's look at this quickly. We're not going to watch this whole thing. However, a few days ago, a attack on a DRC refugee camp occurred, a bombing, and the U.S. has now accused Rwanda of having been involved. So they have denied it, but let's look at this real quick. This is from France 24 English, discussing this situation.
I want to bring in with me Distel. Distel, you just tell me your story. You're a former Monaco football player. You're representing the World Food Programme. Just tell me about your experiences with this part of the world, the east of Congo, and these particular refugee camps we're talking about.
Yeah, Gavin, thank you for giving me the way to talk. First of all, I want to give my deeply condolences to all the victims of the attack yesterday in Muganga. So, unfortunately, is the population, innocent people, and in the refugee camp, I think is horrible. And I was over there 5 months ago in Goma, and to tell you the truth, to live over there is very hard, it's tough.
For those coming to this for the first time, it's a complicated conflict to understand. So can you just first of all just give us a sense of life? You know, you go to the refugee camp, how accessible is it in the east? I mean, we're talking about, you have the capital, Kinshasa. This is where your family grew up, Distel.
Correct.
You were born here in France.
Yeah.
Many analysts say if you grew up in Kinshasa, even now, you might have a fairly brief understanding, but it feels very disconnected to what's going on in the East. And just give us a sense of life, therefore, for the displaced, what you saw.
Yeah, correct. So for me, I get the opportunity to go to Congo because I play for national team during...
Sorry, I forgot that they talk about a bunch of stuff completely unrelated to this. Where I can't hold on. I'm trying to remember where they get more in depth about this. Yeah, maybe I'll just read this article. I was gonna read it anyway. Maybe I'll just get deep on it. Okay, this is from Le Monde Francais, aka The World. According to them, this is from 2 days ago. U.S. blames Rwanda for deadly attack on displaced camp in the DRC. The United States has accused Rwanda of involvement in a deadly attack on a camp for displaced people in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. A claim dismissed as absurd by Kigali on Saturday, May 4th. At least 9 people were killed in blasts on Friday in the camp on the outskirts of the city of Goma, local sources said. The United States strongly condemns the attack Friday from Rwandan defense forces and M23 positions on the Mugunga camp. Now, I'm just going to say this because we've been talking about Rwanda a bunch recently. If this is true, this is very bad. Okay? Because Rwanda doesn't need to start doing any sorts of war crimes or so. I don't know if you're familiar with the Rwandan genocide or any of that, but recently we've been talking about Rwanda because of the what's it called? The new asylum law in the UK, where they're shipping off anybody who comes seeking asylum in the UK to Rwanda. Right? And now if Rwanda's government is attacking people in refugee camps, I can't think that that bodes well for people that are being sent there. But maybe I'm just correlating things that don't need to be correlated, but it does concern me. Now, they have denied it, so I'm just going to say that. We said it multiple times, I think, but it does raise some flags. Why does the earth look so fuzzy? Okay, let's look at this. Alright, we're going to move north from that to Sudan, where according to UN agencies, people are eating leaves, quote unquote. This is from 7 hours ago.
UN agencies are telling Sudan's warring parties that the time is running out to prevent starvation in the Darfur region. The warning comes as clashes intensified, and this is around the northern capital of El Fasser. And with that, we know the fighting is getting in the way of life-saving aid. Close to 25 million people, more than half the population, desperately need help. Since April of last year, the country has been gripped by violence between rival militaries, leading to a severe humanitarian crisis. So for more on this, we have reached Mathilde Vu. She is a Norwegian Refugee Council advocacy manager for Sudan, and we reached her today in Nairobi. Mathilde, thank you so much for taking the time, and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I want to start by getting you to paint a picture, if you will, of the situation on the ground right now in Sudan.
Sure. I mean, it's a heartbreaking picture. It's basically a country that is collapsing in front of us. You said it earlier today. It's the world's largest displacement crisis. It's also going to be the world's largest hunger crisis. Right now, there are people who are eating leaves. They're eating cats, because there is nothing else for them to eat, to live on in a...
They're eating leaves and cats. I don't know if you all heard that. Shit is fucking dire.
Regions of Darfur, for example. And it's been 1 year of everyday violence. Not a few days ago, there was a few villages being burned to the ground and people fleeing again in Darfur. And this has been ongoing like this for a year.
As you said, ongoing for a year. Could you, if you might, for our audience, bring us up to speed on how we got to this point?
It's such a complex history, right? Sudan has been, I mean, I think you auditors might know about Sudan and Darfur 20 years ago and the genocide that happened. There's been a history of violence in the country. There's been a failed transition to democracy. And there's been basically 2 generals that broke a war a year ago, and that, you know, that civil war sort of turned into a war against civilians, with, you know, the entire capital being completely destroyed, half of the country being basically paralyzed by conflict, and the entire humanitarian crisis that is just unraveling every day. Every day there's more people dying, there's more people hungry. Soon there's going to be the rainy season with more and more people maybe exposed to cholera. And it's just been ongoing like this for a year.
And as you mentioned, you know, the situation's getting worse. The pressure is on to find a solution, to do something here. Do you feel the international community is paying enough attention to the crisis in Sudan?
No, sadly, not at all.
No, that's also my estimation. It is really it's a dire situation right there, and people are just not paying attention to it because there's honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with there's just too much to fucking pay attention to right now, and people are too focused in on things, and I understand that sort of reaction to the sort of stuff we've been seeing lately, but this is also it's a massive problem for the world right now.
It should, not at all to the level that it has a responsibility to as well. I mean, again, it's been 1 year. How many times have you heard about it? How many times have people in Canada heard about Sudan and the ethnic cleansing that happened in Darfur? I would say probably none. And the fact that there is no international attention, that there is no political attention, that the international community
well, I mean, I know there's some Canadians in this stream, so technically, what she's saying there, maybe not 100% correct, but you know, it's probably up there in terms of percentage on America too. You know, this is a Canadian news outlet, so that's why I think she's talking about Canada specifically.
To, you know, appeal to parties to the conflict to de-escalate, appeal to parties to the conflict to let aid flow into the, you know, into the country, to the people.
Exactly. We need to get aid to Sudan. There's literally 25 million people there currently that are in, you know, near starvation conditions right now. 25 million. And there's a bunch more displaced, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's like 60 million displaced. It's some massive fucking number. Yes, exactly. You have at least a couple of Canadians who know things about stuff. Okay, what is next after that? Is it Myanmar? It is Myanmar, okay. Okay. Just because it's Sunday Funday, I decided to put this video first. We have another video to actually discuss what's been happening in Myanmar as of late, in a bit of depth. But first, let's look at this. This is from 3 years ago. I don't know if you've seen this video. I saw it like I think I saw it like the day that it happened. But it went kind of viral, at least for something like this. This is from 3 years ago, during the coup in Myanmar, when a fitness instructor was in the capital making a YouTube video. Maybe Instagram, something like
that. This woman is recording a workout video, all while a military coup is going on behind her. King Hin Wai's camera caught the military convoy driving through a barricade toward parliament in Myanmar, once known as Burma. The Southeast Asian country's military seized control of the government from civilian leaders after claiming its recent election was rigged. Military leaders supported the opposition and claimed the takeover was legal under the constitution. The country's election commission says there is no evidence to support claims of election fraud. But the government is now under military rule with a state of emergency in place and some leaders under house arrest. While all of that was happening, this dedicated fitness instructor was just going about her day recording videos for her students to do at home. Some have criticized her for knowing what was going on and being insensitive to the situation. But she claims she had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, and you can tell by her eye line that there's no way that she noticed that. She was in the middle of a very aggressive workout regimen right there, I would point out. I always just thought it was just this sort of, what do you call it? God, it's sort of just, I don't know if irony is really what I'm looking for. It's a different word. I just can't think right now. My brain is fried. It was just this sort of juxtaposition between these two things, and it's like this very sort of fun, upbeat thing happening, and then, you know, in the fucking background is a goddamn coup. And I would point out that things have not changed much since then. Although there's definitely some stuff to talk about for sure. So let's look at this. This is from PBS NewsHour from 8 hours ago. Where they kind of asked the question here: what a rapidly changing civil war means for the future of Myanmar. Absurd. Thank you. That's the word I was looking. Thank you, Mo.
Southeast Asian nation of Myanmar is on the brink of becoming a failed.
Oh, look at that. BCAT showed up. Good to see you. Everybody's been wondering where you are. Everyone's going, BCAT, where are you?
For 3 years, the nation of 54 million people has been embroiled in an escalating civil war between the military junta and hundreds of pro-democracy militias, ethnic armies, and local defense forces. Civilians are suffering. The United Nations estimates that more than 18.5 million people desperately need humanitarian assistance. Thousands are fleeing the country. A 2021 military coup brought to an abrupt end Myanmar's move toward democracy. The widespread peaceful protests that followed were put down by the junta with a brutal crackdown. Scores of opposition protesters fled the cities for the mountainous jungles that make up much of the country. Pro-democracy militias and armed ethnic groups united with the common goal of overthrowing the junta. Last month, rebel forces took control of a key economic hub that was responsible for $1 billion in trade last year. It's among the latest in a long line of junta defeats over the last 6 months that has left resistance groups in control of a significant part of the country. Earlier, I spoke with Burmese-American journalist A.
Hold on. I just want to look at this map real quick. So it seems like the middle of the country is mostly either contested or controlled by the military. And then it seems like the perimeter of the entire country is controlled by the resistance. And it's not just one resistance, I'd point out. It's multiple groups. I think it might be dozens of groups, honestly. And this thing is honestly, it's completely... because of that, it's very complicated. And there's already been a massive ethnic cleansing that happened in this country. If you're not familiar with the Rohingya genocide and ethnic cleansing that happened in this area, I'd Wikipedia that if I were you. But it certainly plays a big factor in this situation, at least historically, over the last, I guess, 15, 20 years. I think the first one happened like 15 years ago. Your Wi-Fi went out? That's terrible.
Control of a significant part of the country. Earlier, I spoke with Burmese-American journalist A. Min Tant about the current situation in Myanmar.
Fighting has really escalated in Myanmar since October of 2023, where Myanmar saw large resistance forces really coalesce and form an allyship and launch a coordinated attack against the military on multiple fronts. And since then, major gains were made, especially along the border regions, along major trade routes, and in several cases, trade towns and trade routes were able to be shut down. Although the military has regained control of some of these areas, they have been dramatically weakened.
Who are these groups that are fighting the junta military? Who are they and what do they want?
So there's various groups that are fighting the military. There are what are called ethnic armed organizations, which are made of ethnic groups that were essentially thrown into the country of Myanmar together for the first time through British colonization, but really have a long history of being individual political entities and have been fighting for independence in some cases, or more legal rights in other cases, and in some cases just complete separation from the country of Myanmar proper. And in addition to that, there are also multiple groups that have come to being since the coup, mostly made out of farmers and students and other young people from the ethnic majority group who, since the coup, have turned towards violent revolution as a way to negate the effects of the coup and try to turn the country back towards democracy.
Is there enough
That back tattoo is fucking insane. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. And the fact is that some of the armed ethnic groups, like she was saying, are separatists. They want to form their own government. Some of them happen to ally with Burma, which is a country that borders with Myanmar. We're not gonna watch this whole thing, but I just figured, considering all the things that have happened in Myanmar over the last whatever, like what was I saying, like 15 years, probably best to at least be aware of what's going on there. It is a fucking clusterfuck of a situation. I genuinely hope they figured the situation out without more bloodshed, but it's just me being an optimist, I think. Okay. We have concluded our stream. Ha, just kidding. No, we have concluded the global news section. Specifically, now we are moving backwards to talk about protests in the United States, talk about Gaza in general, and yeah, that's gonna be basically the rest of the stream. First off, let's do the protests. So let's look at this from MSNBC. Now, these few 1, 2, 3, there's like 4 videos here I've got lined up, at least. Maybe you could count it as like at least 5, actually. But I just wanted to look at the difference in the way that this thing is being covered. And some of the historical context relating to anti-war protests, student protests, and stuff like that. But I found this hilarious. We have 2 different MSNBC pieces that we're going to contrast here and sort of analyze just a little bit. One of them happens to, I think, actually hit the nail on the head with almost all of it. The other one happens to miss everything. Pretty much everything you could miss, they've decided to miss. So let's get into these weeds. First with this MSNBC one from a day ago. Columbia professor, NYPD presence has left students feeling less safe.
History is repeating itself as anti-war protests sweep across U.S. campuses, with Columbia University once again emerging as the epicenter of this new student groundswell. Across the country, more than 2,300 people have been arrested on campuses in the last 2 weeks, since April 17th, according to the Washington Post. Now, historically, American universities have been witness to some of the biggest movements for social change, spanning from the anti-McCarthy demonstrations of the 50s to civil rights and anti-Vietnam protests of the 60s, the anti-apartheid campaigns of the 80s, and most recently, the Black Lives Matter movement. Despite this long history of social justice advocacy, each generation of education administrators seems to stumble in their response to student-led protests. The police intervention during the 1968 Columbia campus protest movement against the Vietnam War often escalated peaceful protests into violent riots and complete campus shutdowns. At the height of the Vietnam-era college protest movement across the country, students rioted, clashed with police, barricaded themselves, and burned buildings down. It culminated in the tragic Kent State Massacre in 1970, when members of the Ohio National Guard opened fire on a crowd of unarmed student protesters, resulting in 4 deaths. Notably, today's protests, which are already being called the largest student movement of the 21st century, have been met with unusually swift and extreme pushback in many cases, an indication that some schools are no longer starting with the presumption that protecting speech is a primary matter. But far from being an unruly, violent mob with no clear goals, today's campus protests have goals. They are calling for their schools to divest from Israeli companies with ties.
I gotta say, Ali Velshi just keeps hitting the nail right on the head with this shit. And it's amazing to hear anybody from the mainstream media actually pointing out the fact that the movement has very clear objectives that they have said over and over and over again.
Israel, and manufacturers, particularly American ones, supplying weapons to Israel in light of its occupation of Palestinian territories and the current war in Gaza. For instance, the group behind the protests at Columbia University, known as Columbia University Apartheid Divest, has outlined 5 specific demands, including divestment and ending campus policing. Some universities are beginning to respond to student demands. At least 4 campuses have peacefully dismantled encampments after reaching agreements with their administrators, including Rutgers University and Brown University. Now, universities naturally foster robust debate, critical thinking, and social innovation, and have long served as hubs of social justice and political activism. Reflecting on the university's inherent role and the power of student activism back in the early 1980s, a Columbia College senior wrote in a student publication, quote, "By organizing and educating the Columbia community, such activities lay the foundation for future mobilization against the relentless, often silent spread of militarism in this country."
Arguably the greatest work of nonfiction of the 20th century.
If a group of young anti-establishment pacifists with unusual ideas and uncomfortable answers terrifies us more today, our terror says more about us.
I don't want reality.
It indicates that we have failed to comprehend the meaning of a blind obedience to authority and that we have yet ourselves to learn the democratic lesson that we have taught the Germans, end quote. Those words were published in 1983. The author was a Columbia student by the name of Barack Obama, who went on to become the 44th president of the United States. Hi, joining me now is Eddie Glaw Jr.
Okay. Honestly, this conversation is great. I recommend you listen to it. And honestly, maybe we should listen to a little bit of it. You know what? Let's listen to a little bit of it. We're not that far behind. For a second, I thought that we were like well over 3 hours going towards 4. But no, we got time. We can hit up this a little bit longer. Go back.
Professor of African American Studies at Princeton University and the New York Times bestselling author of We Are the Leaders We Have Been Looking For. Joining him, Karen Attiah, an award-winning columnist at the Washington Post and an adjunct lecturer at Columbia University. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for being with us. Karen, let me just start with you. You are closest to this issue at Columbia in particular. You know, as always with student protests, when you try and get the information on what's going on, depending on whom you hear the information from, it can be very, very different. Give me a sense of what we should be thinking about when we watch these protests that sort of started at Columbia and then spread around the nation.
Yeah, thanks for asking this question. I think we're in a, when we talk about the protests of the past in the 60s and the 80s, and comparing them to now, obviously as both a member of the media and someone who's been lecturing for the last half semester, what I've been paying attention to is the outside perception of the demands of the protest, and I've been pretty, frankly, dismayed.
Yeah,
perhaps,
no kidding.
at the way that these demands, which at first were lawful, were nonviolent. Yes, there were some disturbing incidents, but largely the encampments that I visited over the last couple of weeks were, as you said in your intro, students that were asking very specific demands of their university for divestment. That being said, fast forward to now, we now have social media in which pictures, images can be easily stripped of context, and to see you know, people and frankly journalists who should be doing their jobs, and coming to campus, speaking to students, seeing the scenes for themselves.
Didn't we watch an interview on Fox, or like we were watching a live stream of Fox watching the UCLA protest, and instead of interviewing the protesters, they were interviewing the counter protesters?
Relying on misinformation, relying on amped up rhetoric from politicians with their own agendas has, well, it's been frankly educational as someone who lectures on these things. But one thing I do want to point out is that having been on campus, the increasing decisions to involve the NYPD as a means of dealing with this problem have only served to escalate, and now we have a situation.
Exactly. It can only serve to escalate. 100%. I feel like the administration should know that, right?
Political retrenchment. We have to understand the political context. Colombia's president responds in the way she does to the encampment right after appearing before this, what could only be appearing before Congress, or this witch hunt, or following the lead of Representative Stefanik. And we get this. And so I want to suggest that what we're seeing among administrators is a reflection of the pressures of the political climate. That's one thing. The second thing is the difficulty of the issue around criticizing the policies. The execution of the war in Gaza with Israel carries with it claims of anti-Semitism. There's this conflation of critiquing the war with claims that people are being anti-Semitic. And of course, there are those who are anti-Semitic. The rise of anti-Semitism before October 7th actually tied to the conservative right, white supremacy.
Exactly. 100%. All right. Just so we don't get completely distracted from what I'm trying to focus on. Let's move along to this from PBS NewsHour, discussing how some colleges and students have reached agreements over pro-Palestinian protests. This is from 8 hours ago, and it looks like there's at least 5 universities or colleges that have now made agreements with protesters.
The prevailing images of college protests over the Israel-Hamas war in the past few weeks have been of escalating tensions, students clashing with police, and mass arrests. But students and administrators at least 6 schools from Rhode Island to California have found common ground.
Sorry, 6? You got Northwestern in Chicago, University of Minnesota, Evergreen State in Washington there. UC Riverside, Brown and Rutgers. I already knew about Brown and Rutgers, but these 4 I was unaware of until recently. Oh wait, no, I think we talked about the Northwestern. That was the one I was forgetting yesterday when we were talking about this.
And negotiated agreements to close tent encampments. Aaron Gretzinger is a reporting fellow at the Chronicle of Higher Education. Aaron, what do these agreements look like? What have schools agreed to do?
Yeah, so at the schools who've made agreements so far, we've seen distinct stipulations, but common themes in each of those agreements. At Northwestern, which made an agreement early last week, we saw several steps toward what students viewed in the groups there as moving toward their major demand of divestment. So there we saw them make agreements to have a committee that will look at divestment. Northwestern agreed to disclose investments to all internal stakeholders, as well as some movement on agreements that have been in the works for longer for students who are Muslim, who are from the Middle East, and are of North African descent. So looking at student centers as well. We've seen similar things in agreements at Brown, who will take a vote on divestment this fall. And overall, I think the main themes to take away here are that these encampments have been really central for administrators who've wanted to focus on de-escalating the situation. That's been the main mantra of these administrators. Students, on the other hand, have really looked at these as key first steps toward their broader demand of divestment.
I was going to ask that. I mean, how meaningful are these concessions? Because they're not divesting. They're going to talk about divesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what a lot of higher ed onlookers have seen in these agreements is that these administrations appear to have taken student demands seriously, but have still fallen short on what other...
Why does she keep saying demands? What the fuck is a demand? Is that a word?
See as the key purpose of these protests, which is divestment. So there is some question. I think some pro-Palestinian student demonstrators and experts I've talked to as well who study student political activism aren't quite sure how far these agreements will go, if they go as far as some student protesters would hope. There's questions of if this will ultimately result in divestment, and similar universities have taken actions before. Brown and Northwestern have had similar reports and committees studying these issues, but nothing has moved in the past.
And have there been...
Okay. Just wanted to at least make us aware of how successful the protests have been up to this point. Seems like they have gotten at least some of their demands, which is good. Or demands, as I should say, I suppose. Don't do this. Don't do this right now, stream software. It's been going good for the last few hours. No reason for you to go. There we go. Well done. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Diamond, divest. Wow, chat. Just full of it today. Okay. I just want to look at this really quickly since we're on the topic of this situation we just discussed, UC Riverside. Let's look at this from 12 hours ago where UC Riverside has officially divested from Israel and ends its study abroad programs as well.
I'll be brief. I can't compete with hip try. I just want to do a few things. First, I want to thank all of you. As Samia said, we should be proud of the fact that we've got through this together in a peaceful way, and that's a credit to everybody here. I particularly want to call out. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I particularly want to call out these two young women. Yes. You couldn't have better leaders, and I mean that sincerely. From the beginnings of our discussions, it was always clear we all had the same goal: to make UCR the best place we could today and in the future. And we're, I think, all proud of the work, but particularly grateful for your leadership for all of you. So thank you.
Joining me now is presidential historian.
Hey, pause. There we go. Okay. Now for the, what do you call it? The, not necessarily the opposing side, but the contrasting. Let's get some contrast in here. And by contrast, I mean the awful. This woman makes some very ahistorical claims in this video. She says a bunch of nonsense things about the protests from the 60s, and we're going to get into all of that. But first, let's listen to, you know, the bulk of what she has to say about this. Thankfully, it's not the whole thing, and we get to cut out parts of this.
Joining me now is presidential historian and author Doris Kearns Goodwin. Her latest book is An Unfinished Love Story, a personal history of the 1960s. I'm very proud to call you my friend and say all that I've read so far is so good. We're going to get to the book in a moment, Doris, but I do want to compare and contrast the protests that we've seen on these campuses the last few weeks with those of the 1960s. There's one Vox reporter who points out the current protests have faced swifter suppression. In one example, the University of Texas called in police in riot gear and on horseback despite no signs of violence. So put today's protests in historical context. Will the students protesting be seen as being ultimately...
By the way, just for your own sanity, prepare yourself. She's about to put the 60s into some sort of very strange fictional context.
On the right side of history.
Well, it's really interesting, Alex, when I look back at the 60s, which I've been living in for that book that I was working on with my husband before he died, there's really two parts to the 1960s protests. In 1967 and 1968, anti-war protesters were peaceful, they were disciplined, they joined the McCarthy campaign and the Robert Kennedy campaign, so they had a channel for their protest, and they cut their beards, the girls wore long skirts, you know.
I gotta stop it there. Oh God. Okay. Let's pick apart that very dumb sentence. Okay. So according to her, one of the big differences here is that the pro-Palestinian movement and the anti-war movement now and the one from the 60s are different in that A, they had politicians that they were working with, okay, we'll ignore the fact that that's, you know, also happening now. But let's forget that. Let's look at this, okay? The suggestion that cutting your beard and wearing a fucking long skirt is somehow some sort of strategy that that's what makes this illegitimate, right? They're not taking this seriously enough. Why aren't you, why don't you shave your beard? Well, make your bed. Why don't you clean up your room? She's like the female fucking Jordan Peterson right now. Oh, they're not. Oh, why can't they just take a shower?
Boys cut their hair, and they really were out there knowing that public sentiment mattered. They were disciplined, the message was clear, and they made an impact, John. And
we just got done talking about how the protests against this genocide in Gaza right now have very fucking clear demands. Ali Velshi at MSNBC just went through just how fucking clear those demands have been. We just looked at how multiple campuses, 6 campuses at this point, have already made deals with them based upon their demands. And yet she is living in La La Land over here. Okay, sorry, going back to this.
March 31st, 1968, LBJ started negotiating a peace. He called for an end to the bombing, and he withdrew from the race. But then what happened is fate intervened. Bobby Kennedy is killed. Martin Luther.
For fuck's sake. Fate intervened? This is nonsense.
King dies, riots, and the peace talks stall. By the
It was God, everybody.
time we get to the Democratic Convention, there's frustration. Still, the overwhelming majority were peaceful. I was there. So was my husband. We didn't meet. It was one of those many times where we were many places where we just didn't meet. He always said he was looking for me this whole time. But nonetheless, besides the majority who were peaceful, some people had come just to frustration, mayhem, disturbance, and then the
She wants to say instigators, but she's trying not to.
police were already waiting for them before they had done a thing. Mayor Daley's forces were out, and they overwhelmingly responded in force. And then the disorder and the mayhem meant that even that night, Teddy White, the great reporter, said, the Democrats have lost the election this very night. The law and order campaign became Nixon's campaign, and that was the victory that Nixon had. And then the war went on and on and on. So that was a
So what the fuck is she saying right now?
very sad ending, but there was real idealism at the beginning of it all.
There was a
Dude, it's insane that, I mean, first off, like, I don't know if you caught it in there, but she suggests that the protesters don't have any public support right now, and that is somehow, like, what's the word? Like, demonstrative of what of whether or not it is right. And it is so insane that I had to look it up just to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. As it turns out, no, I'm not losing my mind. Wait, what happened to this window? Can I have this window open? Hold on, chat. There it is. Found it. Let's look at this. Because the fact is, she was talking about 1968, okay? But the protests started in the earlier 60s. And I looked it up. Where is it? So I have it memorized in my head. Okay. Before 1968, public opinion was very much pro-war in Vietnam. In 1965, Gallup did a poll in which 60% of Americans agreed with the war on Vietnam, while only 24% disagreed with it, right? And those were the initial protesters that were disagreeing with it, right? 3 years later, after the protests had gone on for years, right? In 1968, when it seems to be that she seems to think is like, that's her October 7th. That's when history starts in the protests. And that's when, everybody was before it. And it was just, but it's nonsense, right? It's complete fucking nonsense. People were not for it initially. The protests are part of what helped push opinion in the other direction. And she just wants to pretend like somehow, like, that everybody was always a fan of it. And it's just this fucking ahistorical nonsense. Oh, can I even handle to listen to more of this? I think we're going to have to. just because she's just so frustrating.
To be made with the campus protests against apartheid in South Africa, because those did have some success. You had 155 universities that ultimately divested. And then 1986, the U.S. government also bowed to pressure from protesters and enacted a divestment policy. How do you see the comparison? Do you think the current protests can be as successful, at least that incident was?
Well, that incident, too, had a specific goal in mind, the divestment about apartheid. And there was a worldwide field.
It's like she hasn't watched any of the protests or listened to anybody for the last 6 months.
Against apartheid that was developing. This one is so much more complicated because both sides are so much more complicated in this struggle. And the question will be how much goes forth in the fall. It's going to depend so much on what happens. The war in Vietnam was in our control. It was our war. It was an Americanized war. This is a war where other people have control of.
Is she just unaware of the fact that we've given Israel like $400 billion over the last 50, 60 years or something like that? It's insane.
What's happening, even as the students are protesting.
So let's get to the book, which I'm happy to do. You have.
Okay, now we're done. Because her book is garbage. It's just this weird discussion of her seemingly quite privileged life with her and her husband in the 60s. So let's just completely ignore that historical perspective. But let's not forget what it is she just fucking said. A bunch of complete nonsense. And to discuss this in further detail, let's start this off with this one from Democracy Now! From 5 years ago, where they interviewed, what is this guy's name? I don't remember his name, but a documentarian who had just gotten done doing a film on the impact of the Vietnam War. And, yeah, they get into a little discussion here.
This is Democracy Now! We end today's show with The War at Home. That's the name of a classic 1979 documentary about anti-war protests in the 60s and 70s in Madison, Wisconsin. The Academy Award-nominated film's now getting a second life with the release of a newly restored print. The filmmaker Michael Moore recently praised it, calling it one of the best documentaries ever made. Michael Moore wrote, "This is the film about resistance." This is part of the trailer for The War at Home.
Ken, why do you plan to burn your personal check in front of the Internal Revenue Service building here in Madison this morning?
Well, I would like to protest against the income tax system because of where most of the money goes. 10% is earmarked especially for Vietnam, which I consider to be an immoral war.
That's the trailer for The War at Home. And for those who are just listening on audio, it's the images of mass protests, the images of war and bombing in Vietnam. The film was just restored and re-released. Well, recently, Democracy Now!'s Nermeen Sheikh and I sat down with one of the film's two directors, Glenn Silber, two-time Academy Award nominee, to talk about the film's contemporary significance. I began by asking Glenn why he focused on one town, one city, Madison, Wisconsin.
Well, co-director Barry Alexander Brown and I had lived through this experience. I was there as a college student from 1968 through 72.
At the University of Wisconsin.
At the University of Wisconsin. Barry had actually gone to high school there. And for me, at least, having experienced that very intense anti-war movement that changed my life, I really felt we'd lived through a story that had to be preserved. It had to be put on film, because I think that's the best way. There's no book that you can read about the anti-war movement that will give you the same sense of that 10-year experience in Madison. And I think the best way to tell that story was to use our community as a microcosm of the whole period. Every single thing that happened anywhere in the country happened in Madison, from the very first anti-war demonstration in 1963, where you see the protesters wearing suits and ties, to 4 years later, well, we'll see a clip of it maybe, of the Dow demonstration. And then, of course, as things got more intense after Kent State, where it became really
Well, let's go to the Dow demonstration. Okay. Let's go to what this is. It's October 18th, 1967.
Yes. I think the Dow demonstration, at least in Madison and probably elsewhere, is one of the most important important demonstrations ever, because what was it? The university invited the makers of napalm, that horrible weapon of war that really should have been outlawed to begin with as a crime, this gel that burns people to death. They invited them on the campus so they could recruit more future napalm makers. And I think it's important because in the University of Wisconsin, the anti-war movement was very focused on this. It became a real moral issue. And there was 2 years of organizing just around that issue. So when Dow Chemical came over to the community at this college, and the students were ready, and they said, we're going to block you, it was kind of what we say when the movement moved from protest to resistance. Up to that point, all the protests were kind of passive resistance, taking our cues from the civil rights movement. But with Dow, they drew a line, and they weren't going to be quite as easy to go. And this time, they also met some repression they never saw before.
A clip of the war.
No, actually, let's watch this. Shit. No, don't do this. Don't freeze on me, stream. Let's be friends. You and me. There we go.
Home.
It was clear that the university was going to protect Dow. The plan was that people were going to go up to the Commerce Building again and sit down and be carried off. Another non-violent demonstration.
People at that time's consciousness about the war was at a stage of conscious, active resistance. There was a straight determination to resist being removed from that building if the police entered.
All they did was come in 4 or 5 at a time with clubs swinging and just beat the hell out of everybody in their path as they just swept down the corridor.
Everybody sort of then just ran for it.
So after this initial impact here, and we were able to accomplish the objective of clearing the corridor area. But the problem then transferred itself from within the building to outside of the building.
The whole place was like a war zone. The critical moment was the crowd began to gather because classes were just over.
I'll be right back.
When the cops moved in, they start using tear gas. And something like 4,000, 5,000 kids who are being affected by this thing. Well, suddenly all these fine middle-class kids at the University of Wisconsin are being tear-gassed and clubbed. And I mean, I don't know if it's a time shock or what, but there was an awful lot of politicalization that took place in that 15, 20 minutes when the cops just let go with everything they had.
A clip from the war at home about the Dow Chemical protest, October 18th, 1967, at the University of Wisconsin. So, Glenn Silber, talk about this moment and the university calling in the police and what this meant.
Well, it was a real turning point in the anti-war movement in Madison, and actually that week was a real turning point nationally because it was the same week that later on they confronted the Pentagon, and there was a conflict like this. Dow Chemical, you know, the university was so stupid. They should have just had their little recruitment off at the Hilton or something. And sometimes in movements, I think there are moments when...
Okay. I just want to move forward to this part of it.
Things he's talking about, you can really step back and have a better appreciation. When we were making the film, we were very young. I was in my 20s the entire time, as was my partner. And we really felt at the time this was our story. And people said, well, it's too soon to tell the story of the anti-war movement. You know, you got to wait another 20, 30 years to figure it out. And we said, no, actually, we don't want someone else to tell our story. This is going to be a fight for the historical memory of that period. And that's what's so important. I mean, this is really the only film. There's another film about Berkeley, but they talk about many other issues. The War at Home stands, and the amazing thing to me, because I've seen it so many times when we originally released it, is it plays different now. It plays stronger now. Obviously, it's because we're in this zeitgeist where everyone I know wants to be part of the resistance. And so I went from being very depressed about the election and in a kind of a funk like a lot of us were, and then very kind of inspired by the women's marches that really picked me up. And I started asking myself, what can I do? What can I contribute to the resistance? And the answer came pretty quickly.
And talk about when you say it came pretty quickly.
Okay, cool. I wish we had time to watch the whole thing, but we do not. However, I just thought that was a good little palate cleanser, as I think somebody said in here on chat. But also important sort of context for this discussion on, you know, really the fact is I put all this in this order because of what that woman said in that video we watched before that was completely ahistorical, claiming that somehow, you know, the protests from the 60s were in the right and they had the support of the public for the whole time, and it was because that they did everything right and they were buttoned up, and it's this sort of gaslighting of the current protests that I just found completely disgusting and wanted to sort of pick apart. Really quickly, I just figured we'd watch this, which is the official trailer for the documentary which we were just talking about, The War at Home.
Ken, why do you plan to burn your personal check in front of the Internal Revenue Service building here in Madison this morning?
Well, I would like to protest against the income tax system because of where most of the money goes. 10% is earmarked especially for Vietnam, which I consider to be an immoral war.
Don't you realize it's important that we're protesting?
What do you think of the peace movement in this country? They don't understand the Asiatic mind, and they don't understand that we're endeavoring...
Oh my god. That is some fucking old school racism right there. Jesus Christ. The Asiatic mind? Wow.
China. They don't understand the Asiatic mind, and they don't understand that we're endeavoring to stop communism on the line.
The protest has but one alternative. Just leave. Just leave. We do not intend to just leave.
Dow was manufacturing napalm. And Dow Chemical recruited professional people from the campus for careers in their various operations.
The whole place was like a war zone. Well, suddenly all these fine middle-class kids at the University of Wisconsin are being tear gassed and clubbed.
People are tense on this university campus, and the troops coming in jeeps and showing bayonets and coming armed and all the full paraphernalia of war.
There were some people, the leaders, said that we are at war with the state now, and they were serious.
I remember a cop going like this with his pistol down on the edge of the car, using it as a rest, and I distinctly thought that he was going to shoot somebody.
The tension was building and building.
And once it got dark, there was trashing.
Fact is, we were watching footage of cops blasting students with rubber bullets for an extended period of time. Very similar shit.
Looting, firebombing.
Something concrete, something specific, some blast, some strike against the war machine as a machine needed to happen.
Okay. Asiatic? Yes, Brandy. He's suggesting that people didn't understand the mind of the Vietnamese person and that they were just savages who, you know, the American public, they just didn't understand how dangerous they were. It's some very old school racism. It's not a word that you hear very often. Asiatic. Okay, moving along. To wrap this up, let's watch this piece from 11 months ago from Robert Reich, the former, what was he, Secretary of the Treasury? No, Department of... No, wait. God damn it. under Clinton. What was he? Secretary of Labor. There we go. Where he discusses the Hard Hat Riot, what a Vietnam War riot says about today's culture wars.
Missing from most history books is a key moment leading to the culture wars now ripping through American politics. In 1970, hundreds of construction workers pummeled around 1,000 student demonstrators in New York City, including two of my friends. The Hard Hat Riot, as it came to be known, ushered in an era of cynical fear-mongering aimed at
Fucking
dividing
hell.
the student demonstrators were protesting the Vietnam War and the deadly shooting
shoving
of
that
four
guy off
student
a car with
activists
cameras
at
in
Kent
his
State
hand.
University that occurred just days before. The workers who attacked them carried American flags and chanted USA all the way and America love it or leave it. They chased the students through the streets, attacking those who looked like hippies with their hard hats and steel-toed boots. When my friends in the anti-war movement called to tell me about the riot...
Just before we even move on anywhere from there. Just that short clip, I think, kind of proves everything that lady was trying to say wrong.
Later that day, I was stunned. Student activists and union workers duking it out in the streets over the war. I mean, for goodness sake, weren't we on the same side? According to reports, the police...
Was Robert Reich in the Obama administration as well? I thought he just worked during the Clinton administration. Hold on. Now I feel like I have to know this. How did I not know that he worked during the Obama administration? Am I losing my mind? I don't think he did work for the Obama administration. Am I just not looking hard enough? He was? Okay. Alright. I'm not gonna worry myself with this. I trust you. I trust you all.
Did little to stop the mayhem. Some even egged on the thuggery. When a group of hard hats moved menacingly toward the action, a patrolman apparently shouted, "Give 'em hell, boys. Give 'em one for me." The construction workers then marched toward a barely protected city hall. Why? Because the mayor's staff had lowered the American flag in honor of the Kent State dead. In a scene eerily foreshadowing the January 6th Capitol riot, they pushed their way toward the building, fearing...
Oh, okay. It was just the Clinton administration. Thank God. I thought I was losing my mind. I'm glad we cleared that up.
Mob would break in, city officials raised the flag. The hard hats also ripped down the Red Cross banner that was hanging at nearby Trinity Church. And in their fury against university students protesting the war, they stormed a nearby Pace University building, smashing lobby windows with their tools and beating students and professors. Around 100 people were wounded that day, most of whom were college students. Several police officers were also hurt. 6 people were reportedly arrested, but only 1 construction worker. My friends escaped injury, but they were traumatized.
It sounds exactly like UCLA, right? Like a bunch of assholes came and attacked the students at UCLA, and yet the arrests that happened that night were entirely of UCLA students that were at the protest, not the counter-protesters. Not a single one of them got arrested. So it sounds like 60 years ago they were the cops were more woke, I guess. What the fuck? How's that one possible? Okay, let's see here. I just figured we'd look at that to kind of wrap that discussion up. Just to really put a nail on that one. Okay, what is next? Okay, now we're going to talk about what is actually taking place right now in Gaza and Israel. First, let's look at this. Where British Palestinian surgeon travel ban. Dr. Ghassan Abu Sita has been denied entry to France. This is unbelievable.
A British Palestinian trauma surgeon who served as a doctor in Gaza says that he's been denied entry to France while on a flight from London. Dr. Ghassan Abu Sita was expected to address the French Senate later on in the day. Abu Sita was denied entry to Germany earlier last month and says the German authorities placed a one-year ban on his entry to Europe, the Schengen zone specifically. He added that French authorities insisted on sending him on a late-night flight back to London, despite earlier flights being available.
It's fucked. They sent him on the. They intentionally sent him on a worse flight. Come on, you're already adding insult to injury here. Unnecessary.
Today I was supposed to give a statement and my testimony before the French Parliament. Yet, upon arrival into Charles de Gaulle Airport, I was briefly arrested on the grounds of a ban that prevents me from entering into any of the Schengen states. This ban was issued under a petition from the German government. Although the French authorities had the right to exempt me from the ban, they did not exercise such a right and denied my entry. In addition, and in an attempt to exercise more psychological pressure on me, the French authorities prevented me from returning to London on the earliest flights. Without my lawyer, the French authorities would not have handed my phone back to me, and I
Without a lawyer, he wouldn't have gotten his phone back from the French authorities? Jesus Christ, he's a doctor. You know, he's a fucking doctor. He has dual citizenship for crying out loud. What does he need to do to be just a free human? It's insane. Just for being Palestinian, I guess.
On the last flight to London.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest.
Already I'm so subscribed. I couldn't be more subscribed. Al Jazeera, I promise. God damn it. And speaking of that, is that what I have next to talk about? Yep, that is what we have to talk about now. Hey, I did manage to actually set up videos in an order that was, as it turns out, acceptable to me. Today, let's go to this. The fact is, we've had so many upsetting stories to deal with today, but this is like at least tied for first. This is insane. This is fucking insane. Okay, just brace yourself. If you haven't heard this, this is breaking news. This is from 9 hours ago. Israel orders a ban of Al Jazeera and suspends broadcasts.
Just our breaking news story coming to us this hour that Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that his cabinet has voted unanimously on Sunday to shut down Al Jazeera offices in Israel.
Israel's government has voted to shut down the Al Jazeera satellite channel, a month after it passed a law allowing the closure in Israel of foreign broadcasters deemed a threat to national security.
Hear that? Oh my God!
The network has been providing on-the-ground coverage of the war in Gaza, the only coverage.
This decision is a very dangerous one. Israel cannot claim all the time that she's a democracy, that it's democracy, and at the same time they are cutting and prevent the journalists to do their job, their professional duty to deliver all the information and the facts and the truth to the people. And
the ban would block access to the Qatari channel's website in Israel and lead to the confiscation of equipment used to gather news for it. Israeli police raided an East Jerusalem hotel used by Al Jazeera as its office and confiscated broadcast equipment.
We have a legal team and they are working to respond to these steps and these regulations. Okay,
now we have more to talk about with this one because this is fucked. This is completely fucked. We've been talking about Al Jazeera, and in particular, some of the reporters. Recently, I think we talked about that one reporter who's been outside Al Shifa Hospital for the last, feels like 6 months straight. I don't think he's left that spot. Pretty sure someone just holds him up and he just sleeps there until he broadcasts again. That dude's from Al Jazeera, and now he's technically not supposed to be where he is, I think. And there's gonna be some shit that goes down because of this, and it's not good. It is not fucking good. And shit is already kind of going down. I mean, they've raided the office. Let's look at this in a little bit more detail from BBC. 13 hours ago, Al Jazeera office in Israel raided and channel taken off of the air.
Okay, let's get more now on the Israeli government decision to close down the Al Jazeera TV channel in Israel. This has been happening throughout the day, and Sebastian Usher is our Middle East analyst at the BBC World Service. And we've had some news in just in the last half an hour or so, Sebastian, from Frank Gardner, our security correspondent in Jerusalem, who says that Israeli police have already raided the offices of the Qatar-based channel. And that was just within hours, wasn't it, of that decision?
That's right.
To shut it down. It seems very, very swift.
It is. It's swift, but it has been building for some time. I mean, this is something that the Israeli government, now this far-right government, has very much pushed for, and especially in the context of the Gaza war events since October the 7th, the Hamas attacks on Israel then, in which Al Jazeera, which Israel has accused for a very long time of being anti-Israeli, it's acted against its journalists. Journalists have been killed. I mean, most famously, 2 years ago, Shireen Abu Akleh, the star correspondent of Al Jazeera for the Arab service that they run in the occupied territories, was killed. Al Jazeera accused Israel 100% of having carried it out.
Yeah.
Since then, Israel has said that the chances are that it was an accidental killing. So this showdown between Al Jazeera and Israel goes back a long way, but really this has become much stronger during the Gaza war.
I love how it's a showdown. Like, I feel like he's really trying to walk a fine line right now. The fact is, it's not really a showdown so much as it's a journalistic outlet and a government with an entire military that chooses to bomb and shoot and find any other possible ways, violent or non-violent, to get rid of them.
And Al Jazeera has been really the only international media outlet which has been able to keep its reporters on the ground there. They've been reporting essentially 24 hours a day.
And that's my biggest concern about this whole fucking thing, okay? It's not that Israeli citizens might not get their news from Al Jazeera. It's that the rest of the world will be kept in the dark as to what the fuck is happening in Gaza. And that can't be allowed to happen. The fact that this is... something needs to be done immediately to reverse what it is that Israel's done. I don't know what America is planning to do about it. I'd be shocked if we actually did something about it, but if we don't, that's wow. I think it's gonna, if Gaza goes dark because of this, and I mean obviously they're in the dark electricity wise and in other ways, but if this happens in the way that it's happening right now, I think the ramifications of it are bigger than anybody's even thinking. I don't even want to say the words I'm thinking right now, but if I were some of the people who have been fighting for the freedom of Gazans in the region, and I suddenly had absolutely no way of knowing what was going on over there, well, might lead to drastic decisions being made. Beyond the obvious, right, of not having a journalistic outlet on the ground in Gaza, which is just completely necessary just for the historical record of what the fuck is happening right now, right? But honestly, that was more of a side point because I felt it was obvious. Okay, what am I gonna look at next? What do we have? Okay. go to this one. This is from Global News from 3 hours ago. Hopes of a Gaza ceasefire now at an impasse. I'm gonna have to line this one up. Give me a second, because this is like a whole Global News broadcast, and we're not watching this whole fucking thing. Stop.
An answer.
I say to the leaders of the world, no amount of pressure, no decision by any international forum will stop Israel from defending itself. And I say to you, we will defeat our genocidal enemies.
In a defiant speech at a Holocaust memorial event in Jerusalem tonight.
Zero pressure from anyone is going to stop him from committing a genocide? I mean, I know that's not exactly what he said, but it's exactly what I heard.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to resist international pressure to halt the war in Gaza. Earlier today, along the border to the enclave, Israeli soldiers could be seen preparing their tanks for battle. The country's defense minister warning of a, quote, powerful operation in the very near future in Rafah and other places all across Gaza. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Going into the weekend, there were high hopes of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas as negotiations showed some signs of progress in Cairo, Egypt. But now both sides are at an impasse. The Hamas delegation left Cairo today after accusing Netanyahu of sabotaging truce talks.
Yeah, no kidding, he's been sabotaging truce talks. He said it publicly. He said, like, the one thing that I think anybody would agree would stop peace talks, which is that he plans to invade Rafah no matter what, ceasefire or not. That's not a ceasefire. That's just a guaranteed genocide. This dude is a fucking psychopath. I can't believe he's in charge of an entire country.
Netanyahu himself says it's the reverse and that any permanent ceasefire deal for hostages would allow for Hamas to regroup and reoffend. Redmond Shannon kicks off our coverage tonight in a warning that the story might be disturbing to some viewers.
Despair after another deadly Israeli airstrike, this time near a school housing displaced Palestinians in central Gaza. 7 months of grief and death, and despite ongoing peace talks, there is little hope that this will end soon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel cannot accept Hamas's demand that his troops withdraw permanently.
Hold on, I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit.
What we see is that there's no mainstream Israeli leader, no mainstream Israeli party that would accept any kind of permanent ceasefire that would allow Hamas to reconstitute itself.
Professor Aurel Braun believes it's unlikely Hamas and Israel will find a common ground in peace talks, especially one that could avert Israel's promise to invade the city of Rafah.
For fuck's sake, it's not a regrouping when you create more people that hate you with every day. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, right? Like, how is it that Israel, and that's the fact, they know that what they're doing is causing people to hate them even more, right? Which is why they're so scared of allowing those people to have freedom. Like, genocide will do that to people, right? Ethnic cleansing will do that to people. It'll make you a little upset. I've never been ethnically cleansed or genocided before, but I'm, you know. I think I might be able to make that assessment. Okay. Look who it is. Soul Life is back. Assumed you were sleeping. Okay, now let's look at this to kind of really drive home this point about Al Jazeera. This is from 16 hours ago. From Al Jazeera English. Al Jazeera's pre-recorded final report.
If you're watching this pre-recorded report, then Al Jazeera has been banned in the territory of Israel. On April the 1st, the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, passed a law that allowed the Prime Minister to ban Al Jazeera. He's now enacted that law. Let me just take you through some of the definitions within the law. They've banned our website, including anything that has the option of entering or accessing the website, even passwords that are needed, whether they're paid or not, and whether it's stored on Israeli servers or outside of Israel. The website is now inaccessible. They're also banning any device used for providing content. That includes my mobile phone. If I use that to do any kind of news gathering, then the Israeli...
Wow. His phone. Right, okay. And it's a news gathering device, I suppose.
...and simply confiscate it. Our internet access provider, the guy that simply hosts AlJazeera.net, is also in danger of being fined if they host the website. The Al Jazeera TV channel, completely banned. Transmission by any kind of content provider is also banned. And holding offices or operating them in the territory of Israel by the channel. Also, once again, any devices used to provide content for the channel can be taken away by the Israelis. It's a wide-ranging ban. We don't know how long it will be in place for, but it does cover this territory of the state of Israel.
Where the fuck are the rest of the media about this, huh? Where's CNN? Where's MSNBC? Where's all the people who are journalistic press freedom advocates? Where are they? If anything, they're hiding in Israel right now, trying to pretend like this isn't happening.
Al Jazeera occupied East Jerusalem.
Oh, it makes me sad that they don't tell us to subscribe at the end of that video. We have one more tiny piece of news to look at. Well, actually it's two, but I kind of think of it as one. But really, it technically is two. So, but it's two very short pieces. This is from 17 hours ago, where Netanyahu is defiant as Hamas delegation in Cairo for ceasefire talks.
לאורך המשא ומתן, ישראל הפגינה נכונות ללכת כברת דרך משמעותית, כברת דרך שתוארה...
Wait, sorry. I fucked up. Throughout the negotiations, Israel has demonstrated willingness. Oh, no, you don't say.
ישראל הפגינה נכונות ללכת כברת דרך משמעותית.
Willingness to go a long way. In what way do you mean by that?
כברת דרך שתוארה על ידי מזכיר...
A long way that was described by U.S. Secretary of State Blinken and others as extraordinarily generous? Yeah, but they were just trying to butter you up. It wasn't generous at all.
בלינקן ואחרים כנדיבה במיוחד. אבל בעוד שישראל...
But while Israel showed willingness, Hamas remained entrenched in its extreme positions.
ראתה נכונות זו, החמאס נשאר מבוצר בעמדותיו הקיצוניות, ובראשן...
And on top, among their demand to withdraw all our forces from the Strip, end the war, and leave Hamas intact. That seems reasonable, honestly. Unless you want to talk about dismantling your government as well.
הדרישה להוציא את כל כוחותינו מהרצועה, לסיים את המלחמה, להשאיר את החמאס על כנו. מדינת ישראל איננה יכולה לקבל...
cannot accept this.
איננו מוכנים לקבל מצב.
We are not ready to accept a situation in which the Hamas battalions come out of their holes, take control of Gaza again. I thought they were still in control of Gaza, which is why you're still there. I'm confused. We are not ready to accept a situation in which the... Oh wait, no.
ישתלטו על עזה מחדש, ישקמו את התשתיות הצבאיות שלהם,
to rebuild their military infrastructure and return to threatening the civilians of Israel and the surrounding communities.
ולאיים על אזרחי ישראל ביישובי העוטף, בערי הדרום, בכל חלקי המדינה.
in the cities of the
במקרה
South,
זה,
in all parts of the country.
ה-7 באוקטובר הבא
In this case, the next 7th of October is only a matter of time.
זה רק עניין של זמן. כניעה לדרישות החמאס תהיה תבוסה איומה למדינת ישראל.
Surrendering to the demands of Hamas would be a terrible defeat for the state of Israel. Yeah, but it would be a victory for humanity and human rights.
זה יהיה ניצחון עצום לחמאס, לאיראן, לכל ציר הרשע.
It would be a victory for Hamas and the entire axis of evil. It will project a terrible weakness both of our friends and to our enemies, and this weakness will only bring the war closer. Or the next war closer, excuse me, the next one. Interesting. You're in the middle of a genocide and you're trying to concern troll about the next war? Wow.
חולשה נורא, גם לידידינו וגם לאויבינו. והחולשה הזאת רק תקרב את...
I gotta say.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
הבאה, והיא תרחיק את הסכם השלום הבא. כי בריתות לא כורתים עם החלש והמובס. בריתות...
Because alliances are not made with the weak and defeated. Alliances are made with the strong and victorious. What an asshole.
Don't be creepy.
כורתים עם החזק והמנצח. לכן ישראל לא תסכים...
Therefore, Israel will not agree to Hamas's demands, which means surrender, and will continue fighting until all of its goals are achieved. Fuck you and your goals. Your goals are whack as fuck, and you need to chill the fuck out, pal. Jesus Christ. Okay, that's enough. That's enough of that. Okay. What's next? I think it's Gantz. Yeah. Alright, let's look at this. Where Israel's defense minister on worrisome signals from ceasefire talks with Hamas. This is maybe like the penultimate most annoying of these videos. Actually, no. This is also tied for first with like 2 other videos right now for most annoying. This one is actually really, really like incredibly concerning, which is why it's the last video. Sorry, chat. Well, it's technically the penultimate video, but the last one's more of a pick-me-up. What is this guy's name again? Benny Gantz. No, Yoav Gallant. Sorry, Yoav Gallant. I don't know why it came up as that. Yeah, Yoav. Okay, let's listen to Yoav say some very disturbing things to troops near the border. So this is in southern Israel. We are recognizing worrisome signals that Hamas is not planning to accept. Any deal or agreement with us. And this means an operation in Rafah and in the entire Gaza Strip is in the near future. Excuse me, it's in the very near future. I'm going to read that again. The meaning of this is an operation in Rafah and in the entire Gaza Strip in the very near future. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. This is the express intent to commit a genocide right here. In Rafah, it's already been determined that any operation in Rafah is nothing but an ethnic cleansing. Any deal or agreement with us, and the meaning... Oh wait, no, sorry. I'm just reading. Shit is fucked. Shit is completely fucked. They're putting on a play for us right now. It's the worst play ever. I want my money back. I'm not usually one of those give me my money back type of people, but come on. What? I hate this play. The actors suck. They all seem to be a bunch of assholes. And the director has a very weird take on things. And if the ending isn't amazing, burning this fucking theater to the goddamn ground. Okay, I'm kidding about that last part. But let's move on to this. Just for, you know, a little bit of laughter. And it's funny. We're 1 minute past the end of Cinco de Mayo in the continental United States. But it's not over yet for the world. So let's watch this video. Just for a giggle.
It was May. It was May 4th, and in the Bayside town of Newport Beach, the annual celebration known as Cinco de Cuatro was underway. The holiday started as a particularly vicious response by a young Lucille Bluth to the Mexican holiday
Still isn't made?
of Cinco de Mayo.
Rosa! Why is this still a mess?
She said it's Cinco de Mayo. She's taking the day off.
She said that?
Yeah.
She called it Cinco de Mayo?
She did, yeah.
Oh, why can't they just call it May 5th? This is what I was talking about. It's all
Wait,
part of the
where am I?
Mexican War on May 5th.
I know, yeah.
It is.
But even a
What
skeptical
happened to my
George
face?
Sr. soon found himself feeling similarly embattled.
They're my socks!
Now it's not so funny, is it?
Jesus Christ.
Should start our own holiday.
You see, the Hispanics of Newport liked Cinco a lot, but high up on Coast Highway, Lucille Bluth did not.
Doesn't look like they'll be done anytime soon.
And then Lucille had a horrible thought. A thought that was thoughtless and better to not. What if, she thought, with a sneering grin.
Next year, what if the party didn't even begin?
And so began a holiday on the eve of the 5th of May. Originally intended to deplete the party supplies the Cinco de Mayo celebrants were relying upon. Over 30 years, however, it grew and was soon embraced by the Hispanic community for financial reasons. And as the celebrations peaked with a boat parade called the Festival of Lights, another phrase they wanted back, one man was about to hit his lowest point.
Okay. Yes, the Mexican war on May 5th. And the fact is, like, I feel like they did that purposefully, knowing what May 5th is about. Just because, you know? And yes, we did get Cisco, but because the stream software started fucking us just now, we had to switch to a sub-par stream scene, which I forgot to add the Cisco to, and which my face was actually completely taken off of, and I couldn't do anything about it. But here you are, just to prove to you that you still have Cisco. There is Cisco. Here's me. There's Michael Bluth. Okay. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the stream. Thankfully, it seems we've gotten through it intact. Hopefully we didn't lose anybody along the way. Well, that's it for me, StreamLord. Till I see you next time. You stay classy, Galactic Stream Nation.
Oh, can't forget this. These are your galactic patrons. Gabby, God Dogs, Aaron W, Mitty, Robot Cat, Pitchforks Dragon, The Anti-Corporatist, Vincent Morales, and Donald James X. These individuals have decided to take it upon themselves to help support me and what we do here at the Galactic News Network. Don't forget, you too can become just like these individuals by clicking this link in chat. For a few dollars a month, you too will receive space benefits unseen by the rest of the goddamn galaxy.
The box is full of Pepe!